American TV series, starting to profit from young Sheldon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Solutions and Sales. Seeing Peggy falling into a tangled mood again, Mike said, "Sheldon is right. Escape can't solve the problem. And your self-destructive behavior of running away from home is not advisable. Then what should I do?" Peggy asked Mike the same question. It can be seen that the little girl has no opinion on her troubles. She is like standing at the crossroads of life, but she doesn't know how to choose. This situation is very bad, and she will fall into the abyss if she is not careful. Your current thinking is too extreme. We have a more gentle approach. Mike sorted out his thoughts and said, "To solve your current troubles, I have two suggestions." Mike's method is very simple, which is a downgraded version of Peggy's idea. First, let the little girl try to leave her mother's sight on weekends, so as to create time for her parents to be alone. Second, try to find a way to repair the conflict between parents. These two methods are related to each other, and the first method can also be upgraded. After Peggy showed her mother that she can live independently, she can choose to go out and start boarding life like Mike. This relatively mild approach ultimately achieved the same effect as Peggy had expected. However, if Mike's plan succeeded, the little girl's situation would obviously be much better than before. After listening to Mike's advice, Peggy pondered for a long time. She also realized that Mike's proposal was very instructive for both her and her family. There is another problem. After thinking about it, Peggy said, "Based on my understanding of my mother, she would never agree to let me leave her sight on weekends." Peggy's weekend activities are very rich. Ms. Linda, who hopes her daughter will become a phoenix, often arranges for her daughter to participate in various interest classes and knowledge competitions. It is indeed difficult to get Peggy to have free time on weekends from a mother who is overly controlling. "I have also thought about this issue. We need an external aid," Mike said. "External aid?" Peggy asked curiously. Seeing Mike's confident look made her feel more dependent. "Yes, external help." Mike nodded and said, "I can tell our plan to Grandma Connie, and then let her persuade your mother." Mike had thought about this problem before. Compared with him, the older Grandma Connie was obviously more convincing to Ms. Linda. Besides Grandma Connie, we can also let Sheldon ask for help from his parents. Mike continued. Ms. Linda had also seen the situation of the Cooper family, and if two families vouched for Peggy, she would most likely have the opportunity to study at the Cooper family or Grandma Connie's house on weekends. Yes, the reason Mike found for the girl to leave home on weekends was to go out to study. With Peggy's high IQ, she quickly understood Mike's plan, and this plan is very likely to succeed. Happiness came too suddenly, and Peggy still asked uncertainly, "Is this really possible?" "It's always better to try. If this method doesn't work, we can think of other ways," Mike said as if he had a plan. Little Sheldon, who had been listening for a long time, also said proudly, "I can provide a little help to persuade my parents to help." "Thank you, Sheldon," Peggy said, and then said with emotion, "And Mike, whether your method can succeed or not, I have received your kindness. Intelligence main attribute +1. As the little girl spoke, a main attribute light ball emerged from her body. It seems that she was really touched this time. "I'm also very happy to help you," Mike smiled, and then accepted the light ball in his hand. At the same time, as the science and technology lecture ended, George and Barry, who could not find the children in the museum, were very anxious. "Don't worry, Mr. Berry, Peggy is likely to be with Shelley and Mike, and there will be no danger." Although George was also anxious, he was not as worried as Mr. Barry when he thought of Mike being with his youngest son. Seeing the other party's anxious look, George comforted the other party instead. "Peggy is very sensible. She has never disappeared without saying a word." Mr. Berry, who was emotional, had the intention of blaming George. In his opinion, his daughter's disappearance this time was probably caused by the instigation of Mike or little Sheldon. George vaguely heard the meaning of the other party's words. Although he was very unhappy, he suppressed his emotions and said, "Did you bring Peggy here last year? Think about where she went last year. George's meaning was very clear. In this relatively unfamiliar place, Peggy might go to some places she was familiar with. We took Peggy to a dessert shop last year, and she seemed to like the food there very much, Mr. Berry said. After thinking about it, George's words gave him inspiration. So, the two parents went around and found the small dessert shop where Mike and the other two were. Peggy, you. Mr. Berry was about to step forward when he saw his little daughter sitting in the shop intact. A perfect version at 1619 Book Bar. But someone was faster than him. Ms. Linda rushed into the store from the back and came to her little daughter, scolding her. Peggy, why are you so disobedient? What if you get lost? Seeing the worried and angry look on her mother's face, Peggy lowered her head quietly and listened to the scolding. On the other side, George also walked past Mr. Berry, who had stopped. He came closer and asked, Shelley, Mike, are you okay? Compared with Ms. Linda, George's mood was obviously more stable. Moreover, the expression on his face did not mean to blame Sheldon, and his words were mostly concerned. I'm fine, Dad. Sheldon had time to comment. The desserts in this store taste very good. Really? Hearing his youngest son say this, George smiled. The fact that his youngest son had time to care about the desserts also made him sure that the other party was indeed fine. George, relieved, asked Mike about the situation here. After knowing that Mike brought his youngest son here, he did not show any dissatisfaction. Instead, seeing Ms. Linda scolding her daughter, George shook his head slightly and stepped forward to persuade her. Linda, it's not wrong for a child to have her own ideas. There is no big problem now, so don't blame her. George, who knew something about Linda's family, felt some sympathy for Peggy. You don't understand, George, Linda said angrily. Peggy is still young, she doesn't know what to do and what not to do. As a parent, I must correct her mistakes in time. Seeing Ms. Linda's tough attitude, George knew that he couldn't convince her for a while. So he said goodbye immediately, feeling troubled. Okay, Ms. Linda. See you next time. After that, he greeted little Sheldon and Mike and walked out. When passing by Mr. Berry at the door, George politely nodded to him as a farewell. Mike, on his side, also secretly exchanged glances with Peggy when he left. Obviously, the plan to help the girl needs to be improved. And then, the two need to keep in touch on the phone. Chapter 177 Solutions and Sales, continued. On the way back in the car, Sheldon thought of the promise he made to Peggy, so he said, Dad, did you know that Peggy's parents are getting divorced? George, who had been listening to the Berry couple's nagging for the whole morning, knew this too well. However, it is not a good thing to talk about other people's family affairs behind their backs. So George warned, Shelley, don't spread this kind of thing. I know. Sheldon replied casually, and then continued, Mike and I want to help Peggy. Then, Sheldon briefly told his father about Peggy's situation and the solution Mike came up with. That little girl is really pitiful. George thought of the scene where Peggy was scolded by her mother before. Logically speaking, having a little prodigy in the family should be a matter of pride. Not to mention how much you should treat the little prodigy, but the way Peggy's mother scolded her daughter harshly for a little mistake is really a bit too much. Anyway, George never scolded his youngest son like that. Mike, are you serious? George looked at Mike in the rearview mirror and asked after listening to his youngest son's story. As an adult, George thought more long term than his youngest son. He knew that it was not that easy to help Peggy, and there would definitely be a lot of troubles afterwards. Yes, I want to help Peggy within my ability. Mike nodded and said, in fact, she is almost overwhelmed and even thought about running away from home. After listening to the Berry couple's nagging for a whole morning, George had some understanding of the situation at their home. It is conceivable how much pressure Peggy has to bear in such a complicated family environment. Okay, I will discuss this matter with Mary, and I believe I can help the little girl. George took the task. In a way, George is a very good person. Not long after, the three returned to the town of Telford. When Mike got off the car, he saw the prosperous scene in front of Grandma Connor's house. At this time in the afternoon, the flea market attracted a large number of residents from the surrounding areas to come and watch. Because of the two unreliable salesmen, George and Missy, the scene became very chaotic. Mike, you are finally back. Come and help Grandma Connie, who was almost overwhelmed, shouted in surprise when she saw Mike. Okay, Mike, who had something to ask for later, immediately joined the ranks of salesmen. In front of a small raccoon specimen, Missy and the kid next door, Billy, were in a stalemate. Billy, who only had 5 cents, wanted to buy the small raccoon specimen marked with a price of 5 cents. As for Missy, because of her poor arithmetic, she couldn't calculate the middle price. Is there anything I can help you with? Mike came to Missy, who was in distress, and asked. I can't calculate the middle price, Missy answered honestly. Then, she briefly explained the situation here to Mike. Billy, the lowest price for this specimen is 1 cent. You can go back and ask your father if he is willing to buy it for you. Mike, who understood the general situation, said to the kid next door, Billy, Grandma Connie priced the ordinary animal specimen at 5 cents, which was obviously a bit high. This kind of thing is only valuable if you hunt and make it yourself, and it is not very attractive to others. Perhaps only the naive Billy would want to buy it back as a toy. Okay, I'll go ask my dad. Billy reluctantly put down the raccoon specimen and said. After Billy left, Mike said to Missy beside him, you go and have a rest, leave this to me. Missy, who had been tortured by work for a whole morning, heard Mike's words like heavenly music. She cheered as if relieved. Great. After giving Mike a hug, the little girl ran home happily. On the flea market side, with the addition of Mike, the sales activities became smoother. When it was evening, more than half of the second-hand goods on the flea market were sold. The rest were some pipes, clothes, etc., which were more private things and not easy to sell. It is worth mentioning that the not-so-good raccoon specimen was also bought by Billy, who returned later for 1 meter yuan. After a day of hard work, Connie made a lot of money from the sale. She was in a good mood. Mike, put the rest of the things in the basement. I'll treat you to a big meal later. Connie, who had money in her hands, looked very generous. At this time, Professor John, who had finished his weekend work, rode his bicycle over. Connie, I hope I didn't miss your sale. Professor John greeted from a distance. You came just in time. Connie, who was in a good mood, smiled and greeted. Take a look. I can give you an internal discount price. A perfect version of the book in 1619. At this time, there were no other customers in the flea market except Professor John. After looking at the remaining goods for a while, Professor John suddenly picked out a retro brown coat from it. Now that the weather is starting to get cooler, this brown coat is just right. This brown coat is obviously a bit too big for Professor John, but he seems to like this loose feeling. After putting on the coat, Professor John moved around a little and then unexpectedly found a pack of cigarettes and chewing gum in the coat pocket. Although Professor John does not smoke, he likes this unexpected little surprise very much. This also made him decide to buy this coat. Connie, how much is this dress? Professor John went to Grandma Connie, showed her coat, and asked. Grandma Connie, who was happily counting the change, saw the coat on Professor John, and her face gradually became complicated. This coat was the clothes of her dead husband, and now it was worn by Professor John, which made Grandma Connie feel very uncomfortable. What's wrong, Connie? Professor John, who didn't know what happened, smiled and said, I like this dress very much. You don't have to give me a discount. You can't wear this dress. Grandma Connie, who was immersed in memories, was a little out of control. Why? Professor John asked in confusion. It's just not okay. Grandma Connie didn't know how to explain to the other party, so she could only say firmly, this is not for sale. After saying that, Grandma Connie seemed to have been drained of her energy and spirit, and returned to the house alone and lonely. There is clearly a price tag on it. Why do you say it's not for sale? Professor John, who didn't understand the atmosphere, looked confused. Maybe because it was Grandma Connie's previous husband's thing. Mike, who was packing up the items, reminded him. Looking at Grandma Connie's reaction before and after, and the style of this dress, its origin can be easily guessed. I don't mind. Professor John's brain circuit is obviously different from that of ordinary people. Then, he even asked, also, why is Connie angry? Now the focus of the problem is obviously not whether Professor John minds, but that Grandma Connie minds. Looking at Mike's weird eyes, Professor John put down his coat and said, forget it, I'll go see how Connie is. Fortunately, Professor John's current reaction can still be saved. Remember, don't mention the clothes later, and don't ask about Grandma Connie's previous husband. Mike reminded Professor John, who was leaving. Chapter 178, Creating Romance. At dinner time, Grandma Connie, who came to the Cooper family with Professor John, seemed to be in a much better mood. Mike and little Sheldon also took the opportunity to tell Grandma Connie and Mary about Peggy before the end of dinner. The two had a good impression of the smart little girl who came last time, so they both agreed to help. Maybe I can help a little. On the side, after listening to Peggy's situation, Professor John said, my research project will start in 2 weeks, and I can use this reason to convince Peggy's mother. After listening to Mike's explanation, Professor John also understood how difficult Peggy's mother was. For the sake of the little girl, he decided to join Mike's plan. And from a personal point of view, Professor John is really optimistic about Peggy, the little prodigy. With your help, our plan will be more perfect, Mike said with a smile. For Linda's mother, who is full of control, Mike's previous plan was to use the excuse of studying to let Peggy have free weekend time. And this excuse, with Grandma Connie and the Cooper family alone, I'm afraid it is not convincing enough. Now with Professor John, an authority, the possibility of persuading Ms. Linda is very high. Next, after dinner, several people also drew up a specific plan to help Peggy. A week passed in a blink of an eye. Before another weekend came, Mary and Grandma Connie also called Ms. Linda as planned. After explaining the situation, Grandma Connie, as a representative, asked Ms. Linda out on Saturday. In the cafe, Grandma Connie, Professor John and Mike met Ms. Linda, who came with her daughter as they wished. What is the university research project you mentioned before? Ms. Linda asked directly not long after entering the door. It can be seen that Ms. Linda is very concerned about the training of her daughter. It's a physics research project initiated by my colleagues and me, Professor John said. Hearing that there is such a research project, Ms. Linda was relieved. After that, she asked curiously, is Peggy really qualified to participate in that kind of research project? You know, Professor John has a doctorate, and his research project must not be simple. Peggy is very smart, and is definitely qualified to be my research assistant. Professor John said, of course, if she can keep up with my progress, she has a great chance of becoming a researcher. No, it's already great that Peggy can be your assistant. Ms. Linda was modest for a moment, then turned to her daughter and said, why don't you thank Professor John? Even though Linda is not a professional, she knows that her daughter will definitely learn a lot by participating in such a university research project. Thank you, Professor John, for giving me this opportunity, Peggy said cooperatively. The little girl also knew that Professor John was here to help her, so she said thank you very sincerely. Don't thank me, Peggy, you deserve it. Besides, I have high hopes for you. Professor John warned meaningfully, don't waste your talent. I will. Peggy nodded obediently. After seeing the initial success of the plan, Grandma Connie immediately said, Linda, my place is very close to the University of Texas. Why don't you let Peggy stay with me for the weekend? It just so happens that she can also communicate more with Mike and Shelley. Let Peggy get away from her mother's control for a short time. This is the key to this plan. Hearing Grandma Connie's proposal, Ms. Linda was obviously tempted. Taking her daughter to various tutoring classes every weekend actually took up too much of Linda's personal time. In addition, she was recently divorcing her husband and really didn't have the energy to take care of her daughter. Linda, you also need some personal time. Grandma Connie saw that the other party was showing signs of giving in and continued to persuade. Think about it. When was the last time you had free weekend time? Grandma Connie's words hit Linda's soft spot and made her fall into deep thought. Indeed, after discovering her daughter's talent in learning, Ms. Linda had not had any private time that belonged to her for a long time. Okay, I agree to let Peggy go to your place and try to stay for 2 days. After thinking for a while, Linda agreed to Grandma Connie's proposal. Don't worry, we will take good care of Peggy. Seeing that the plan was successful, Grandma Connie promised with a smile. Peggy, who was standing aside, also smiled happily after looking at Mike. Next, Ms. Linda discussed some details of Peggy's temporary stay with Grandma Connie. After everything was settled, she left the coffee shop with peace of mind. It must be said that Grandma Connie is very experienced in negotiation and comforting people. As for Peggy, after confirming that her mother had left, she breathed a long sigh of relief, stood up and said solemnly, "Thank you." It can be seen that the little girl was under a lot of pressure when facing her mother. Now she has a free weekend time, which is very precious to her. "You're welcome. This is all Mike's credit. John and I just helped a little," Grandma Connie said with a smile. Looking at the girl who is the same age as her little grandson, Grandma Connie felt a little distressed for her. In fact, I like the little girl's intelligence and understanding very much. I read the correct version in the 16:9 book forum. Seeing the sincere smile of the other party, Grandma Connie was happy for the other party from the bottom of her heart. Then, she specially ordered some food to share with everyone. This can be regarded as making up for the promise to treat Mike to dinner last weekend. After dinner, several people came to the outside of the store. Grandma Connie asked, "Do you want me to take you home, or do you want to move around freely? You go first. Peggy and I will go shopping casually." Mike responded immediately. Obviously, Professor John rarely came out today, and Grandma Connie might have special arrangements with him. And Mike also has the task of matchmaking Peggy's parents. "Okay, I wish you a good time." Grandma Connie smiled and didn't ask any more questions. Then, she took Professor John's arm and walked towards her private car. After the car left, Peggy jumped in front of Mike and asked with a smile, "What should we do next?" Without the presence of adults, Peggy showed her innocent side. Or rather, being around Mike made her feel very comfortable. "First we have to make sure where your mother went before we can start the next action," Mike said. In Mike's plan, he wanted to create a romantic experience for Peggy's parents so that they could relive the initial beauty with each other. "I feel like she should be in the bar now." Peggy thought for a while and said she knew that her mother was actually under a lot of pressure. It was rare for her to have such a weekend free time, so she might go to the bar to indulge herself. "Let's go. You lead the way. Let's go and make sure," Mike said. For a couple, the most cozy place is the cabin they share. There, they should have many good memories. Therefore, Mike prepared a surprise venue for Peggy's parents, and the first choice was at their home. Now, he needed to make sure that Peggy's parents were not at home. So, under Peggy's leadership, the two came to a nearby bar. Sure enough, here Mike saw Ms. Linda on the dance floor. She was now completely different from the decent image she had been in the past. With the deafening music, the one dancing like crazy on the dance floor was Peggy's mother. Mike looked at her in surprise for a few seconds, then quickly pulled the embarrassed Peggy and quietly left the bar. Chapter 179 Creating Romance continued. It was the first time that Peggy saw her mother's real side. Even after leaving the bar, the little girl still had an expression of disbelief on her face. It can be said that the scene just now had a great impact on the little girl's young mind. Mike, on the other hand, could easily accept the contrast between Ms. Linda's before and after. After all, as an adult, it sometimes seems reasonable to have two faces. Mike, actually, my mother is not like this usually. Peggy secretly glanced at Mike's profile and explained in a low voice. In the little girl's opinion, the scene just now was too embarrassing. Moreover, according to scientific research, madness can also be inherited. So Peggy, who is too smart, is afraid that Mike will misunderstand. I understand, when adults are under too much pressure, they will want to vent. Mike helped the little girl find a very reasonable explanation. Only after Peggy calmed down did Mike continue to ask, "Is your father at home on the weekend?" As mentioned earlier, Mike's next plan is to choose Peggy's home as the first choice. If Mr. Berry is at home, he needs to choose a new venue. This will be very troublesome and the effect may not be so good. "He shouldn't be here," Peggy said. "My father usually spends his weekends in the clinic. He comes home very late." Come to think of it, if there is a wife with a strong personality and who doesn't care about him at home, no man would want to go home. "Okay, let's go to your house first. If no one is there, we can start to decorate," Mike said, and suddenly asked, "By the way, do you have the key to your house?" Of course Peggy smiled and took out a bunch of keys from her pocket. After that, the two of them came to Peggy's house smoothly. as the girl thought there was no one else at home. "Where is your sister?" Mike asked, looking at the empty room. "She should be attending a classmate's party at this time." When mentioning her sister, Peggy's face became complicated. It can be said that in this family, Erica was completely mistreated by Peggy. Parents' attention can easily fall on Peggy, the little prodigy. Therefore, Erica, who is ordinary in all aspects, will be ignored by her family unknowingly. Moreover, her parents may often compare her with her genius sister. This can also be regarded as the distress of being a sister or brother of a genius. In this regard, George and Missy also have a say. Mike, seeing that Peggy didn't want to talk more about her sister's affairs, wisely didn't ask more questions on this topic. After that, he simply checked the layout of Peggy's house and had a clearer plan in his mind. As a middle upper class, although Peggy's house is not as good as Regina and Karen's villa, it is much larger than Connor's grandmother's house and Cooper's house. After measuring the distance from the yard to the living room, Mike called the wedding errand company and told them what he needed. Not long after, a pickup truck carrying bouquets and various ribbon decorations arrived at Peggy's door. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Mike?" A man wearing a tie who looked like a manager said to Mike standing at the door. "We have brought everything according to your needs." "It's what I ordered," Mike nodded. After getting the confirmation, the tie man looked at Mike's overly young face and asked responsibly, "Are you sure that the layout plan here does not require our participation?" "Yes, I already have a very complete plan," Mike responded. "Well, you are the customer, you are the most important." The tie man did not hesitate too much, but made a small joke. For this plan, Mike prepared sufficient funds, which may be the reason why the tie man was willing to follow suit. After all, as long as the money is in place, the customer can be God. Then Mike told the tie man about his requirements, and the other party took 2 blue-collar workers to get busy. After more than 2 hours, a flower road from the yard to the living room was arranged. Flowers, ribbons, balloons, and bright backgrounds created a romantic atmosphere just right. After checking out and sending the tie man and the workers away, Mike saw that the time was almost up and asked, "Peggy, do you know if your parents have a favorite restaurant? There is a specialty steakhouse and my parents seem to like the taste of steak there." Peggy thought for a while and said, "Very good. Do you know the phone number for ordering food there?" Mike continued to ask. Of course, for Peggy, a little prodigy, it is not difficult to remember a phone number. It is still some time before dinner, but considering the time Peggy's parents will have to rush back, it is not too early to order food now. So Mike called the specialty steak restaurant. While ordering food, Mike also asked the store for a set of candlelight dinner configuration. Of course, the most important red wine is also indispensable. It can be said that Mike spent a little money on this set today. Not long after, the restaurant's special candlelight dinner was delivered and placed in the living room. Looking at the dreamy romantic scene in front of her, Peggy looked up and asked, "Mike, you must not lack a girlfriend, right?" Mike, who was reviewing the on-site layout, did not understand the little girl's brain circuit for a while. "Looking at you, it seems that you know how to please girls," Peggy explained. "So that's it." Mike smiled and shook his head, pointed to his handsome face, and said, "Look at my face. Do I still need to please girls?" Read the correct version in 1619 1 book 1 bar. Although it was a bit shameless to say so, what Mike said was indeed true. Peggy seemed to be shocked by Mike's shamelessness, staring at him with wide eyes. "Okay, time is running out. Next, you need to imitate your parents' notes and write a short confession letter to each of them. After that, we should leave." Mike rubbed the little girl's hair and said to divert attention. HMPH. Peggy dodged Mike's big hand, straightened her hair, and asked, "How should I write a confession letter?" "Write a few caring words, or just copy a few love poems that are suitable for the occasion," Mike said casually. Now the most important scene has been set up, and the confession letter is just a change. So at Mike's instigation, the little girl scribbled onto cards for a while, and then put the cards into large bouquets of flowers. Then, after marking the names of Peggy's parents in the corresponding positions, Mike took the little girl out of the house. After the two found a place to stay in a hidden place opposite the house, Peggy first called her mother. Mom, Daddy asked me to tell you that he has prepared a surprise for you at home. Hurry back." After the call was connected, Peggy said what she had discussed with Mike in advance. Linda actually still had feelings for her husband, and she was obviously a little surprised after receiving her daughter's call. Not long after, Ms. Linda, who had regained her dignified appearance, rushed back home. When she saw the heart-shaped balloons hanging at the gate of the yard, she smiled. Then, she stepped onto the flower path leading to the living room with a happy face. Mike and the other person who were hiding opposite had been observing Ms. Linda's reaction. When he saw her walk into the house with a happy face, Mike knew that the matter was half successful. "Now you can call your dad," Mike said immediately. Peggy nodded and called her father again. "Dad, Mom has prepared a surprise for you at home to reconcile with you. Hurry back." With the experience of the first time, Peggy cleverly gave guidance to the other party on the phone to her father. Not long after, Barry also drove back. When he saw the decoration in the house, he also showed a long-lost smile. After Peggy's parents entered the house, Mike also came to the yard with Peggy and looked inside. The success of this plan depends on this one move. In the room, Peggy's father stood up and hugged his wife after reading the small card in the bouquet. When Mike saw the two hugging each other, he knew that his plan was successful. "Okay, we really should leave this time," Mike reminded the little girl who was staring at her. "Next, there will probably be some scenes that are not suitable for children in the room. If she doesn't leave, Peggy will probably be embarrassed again." Chapter 180, Becoming Stronger. Peggy looked at her parents in the living room, who were enjoying the harmonious atmosphere, and then turned around and followed Mike's pace. After the two walked side by side for a short distance, Peggy couldn't help but say again, "Thank you." Mike's plan this time can be said to have pulled the little girl back from the edge of a cliff, and by the way, it can be regarded as saving her family. "We are friends," Mike said with a smile. "Besides, you have thanked me before." Intelligence main attribute +3. As the little girl's heart knot was untied, Mike also got a main attribute large light ball from her as he wished. After working so hard for so long, Mike was waiting for this moment. Strictly speaking, this is a win-win situation. Mike, who got a satisfactory reward, really didn't need the other party's thanks. Then, Mike couldn't wait to crush the large light ball in his hand. As the light ball merged into his body, at this moment Mike's intelligence main attribute reached 182, successfully breaking through the 180 mark. Every increase of 20 in intelligence attribute is a level. Now Mike, whose intelligence exceeds 180, is already a genius of the same level as Sheldon and Peggy. As his intelligence grew, Mike's mind seemed to be electrified, making him almost cry out in pleasure. Countless pieces of information emerged in his mind, and finally turned into clear pictures. Each picture was like a USB flash drive, storing a huge amount of content. Yes, after his intelligence exceeded 180, Mike also had the image memory method. Moreover, his powerful brain computing ability and spatial construction ability also made the pictures in his mind become extremely clear and smooth when he simulated everything in the universe. From the galaxy in space to the molecules and atoms. As long as Mike wanted, he could build a three-dimensional model of them in front of him, and he could reach out and change their state according to his thoughts. This feeling of being able to control everything made Mike addicted, and at this moment he seemed to have become an omnipotent god. "Mike, what's wrong with you?" Peggy noticed Mike's abnormality and shouted softly. "Huh?" Mike was awakened from his illusory state. Recalling the unreal feeling just now, he shook his head to wake himself up and said, "It's okay, I feel very good now." The feeling of IQ breakthrough is much better than breaking the physical limit of the human body. "Are you really okay?" Peggy said worriedly. "You just stopped walking, and the expression on your face is very strange. Generally, this kind of reaction is likely to be a precursor to dementia or stroke." "I'm really fine, I just thought of something happy just now." Mike made up an excuse to comfort the little girl. "Okay." Peggy didn't dwell on it too much. It's just that she always feels that something has changed in the other person. As for what it is, the little girl couldn't think of it for a while. "It's getting late, we should go back." Mike changed the subject and asked, "Do you know where your sister is? Maybe we should take her with us." Tonight is an important moment for Peggy's parents to reconcile. If it is not necessary, it is better not to disturb them. Peggy immediately understood what Mike meant. She thought for a moment and said, "Actually, my sister usually stays out all night on weekends. It's better to be safe." Mike reminded. According to the little girl, her sister might not bother her parents. But no one can predict such things. If something unexpected happens, everything planned before may go wrong. As a result, Mike's previous help will be wasted. So for the sake of safety, in his opinion, all accidents need to be nipped in the bud. Okay, I know a few places she often goes. Let's go find her. Peggy seemed to realize the seriousness of the problem. Then, the two went to several places before dark, and finally found Erica at a private party. At this moment, she was full of alcohol, and mixed in the party with strong music. But looking at her current state, even if she was mixed in the lively crowd, she looked like an abandoned orphan. It seems that Peggy's family is not the only child who needs to be saved. "Erica, how come you drank so much?" Peggy, who had never paid much attention to her sister's private life before, was also surprised to see her current appearance. She stepped forward and grabbed her arm, saying, "I'll take you away from here, Peggy. Why are you here?" Erica seemed to be drunk and said incoherently, "Where can I go? Having you as an obedient daughter at home is enough." Listening to Erica's nonsense, Peggy knew that she was drunk, so she didn't respond anymore. She used both hands to pull her out. But compared to her stronger sister, Peggy's strength was obviously not as good as hers. "Do you need help?" Mike stepped forward and asked. A perfect version at 1619 book bar. "You are the one, from the Cooper family." Erica, who was not very clear-headed, actually had some impression of Mike. Last time at the Cooper family, the two had also called each other briefly. Peggy never thought, "You usually look like a good girl, you actually caught such a handsome boyfriend." Erica soon continued to talk nonsense, with a silly smile on her face. Peggy blushed at her sister's nonsense, and looked at Mike for help. Mike, who understood what she meant, stepped forward and grabbed Erica and walked out. However, Mike's handsome face attracted many eyes, as soon as he entered the party. Seeing Mike holding Erica, many girls at the party showed disappointed expressions. "Erica, don't you introduce your new boyfriend to us?" "Yes, what's your friend's name?" Since they couldn't get him in their mouths, some girls began to tease Erica. Mike didn't give Erica a chance to reply, and pulled her outside. Erica seemed to be much more sober when the cool breeze of the evening blew. "Where are you taking me?" Erica asked. After that, she looked at Mike's face again, grinning and said, "If you are such a handsome guy, it's not impossible." After that, she glanced at her sister. Her eyes were full of mischief. Obviously, she might not be really sober now, and she was thinking about some very unhealthy things in her mind. "I leave this to you. Tell her about the situation." Mike said speechlessly, "I'll go call a taxi." Although Erica looked pretty good, compared to last time, she now had a smoky makeup on her face and a leather jacket with rivets on her body. She was drunk and now looked like a little girl. Mike said that his appetite was not that good. When Mike called a taxi, Peggy had already explained the current situation to the other party. Erica, who was a little sober now, was quiet now. Half an hour later, the taxi arrived at the door of Connor's grandmother's house. "Go wash up first. I'll take you to eat across the street later." Mike saw that Connor's grandmother was not at home, so he arranged the two people behind him. Chapter 181 Temporary Residence. Mike and Peggy didn't have to wait long. Erica, who had washed up, walked out of the bathroom. She washed off the smoky makeup on her face and took off her riveted jacket, which made her look much more obedient. "Have some water first," Mike said coldly, handing her a glass of ice water. "Thank you." Erica took the cup, and the confused look on her face disappeared. Now she looked a little restrained. At this moment, she looked really sober. After Erica put down the cup, Mike took the two sisters to the Cooper family across the street for dinner. At this moment, in addition to the Cooper family, Grandma Connie and Professor John were at the table. Seeing Mike and others come in, Grandma Connie asked with concern, "You are finally back. Did everything happen?" She was obviously asking Mike, and her eyes also glanced at Erica, who had appeared behind. "Everything went well," Mike finished, and then explained, "The bearers are going to spend some time alone tonight, so Erica will stay with us for one night." Grandma Connie and George and his wife knew some of the inside story of Barry's family, so they were not too surprised by Erica's arrival. "Come and sit down, dinner is about to start." Grandma Connie knew that this was not the time to ask for specific details, so she smiled and asked Mike and the other two to sit down. "Erica, we meet again." The moment Erica appeared, George's eyes lit up, and now he finally found an opportunity to strike up a conversation. "Hello, George." Erica nodded politely, as if to say hello to the other party. Getting Erica's response made George's face show a bright smile. Then he stood up attentively and invited, "Come and sit here. I haven't touched the tableau." Erica was a little overwhelmed by George's inappropriate enthusiasm. Just at this time, Mary came out of the kitchen with 3 sets of tableaux. She also saw her eldest son's actions. "Be honest, little George." Mary glared at her eldest son, asked him to sit down honestly, and then arranged for Peggy and her sister to sit next to Missy. "Okay, let's start praying before dinner." It was rare for the house to be so lively, which made Mary look very happy. For Christian believers, sharing is a virtue. With a relaxed and happy atmosphere, the dinner was coming to an end. Mary looked at the 2 new sisters and asked with a smile, "Peggy, Erica, are you satisfied with this dinner?" "It tastes very good, Mrs. Cooper." Peggy showed a sweet smile and praised, "It's better than my mother's." Erica also gave a good evaluation. "That's good as the chef of this meal." Mary also smiled happily when she heard the answers of the 2 sisters. She now likes this pair of honest sisters a little bit. "By the way, Mike, where are you going to let them stay tonight?" Mary looked at Mike and asked. As a mother, Mary obviously thinks more than others. "Can Peggy live with me?" Missy asked crisply without waiting for Mike to answer. The 2 girls were of similar age and both looked very cute, so it was easy for them to become friends. "Actually, Erica can also live in my room." On the other side, George did not miss the opportunity to show off, and said to Erica with a deep affection look. Hearing George's bold remarks, several people at the table looked over with strange faces. Among them were George and his wife. Feeling his mother's unfriendly eyes, George quickly defended himself. "What I mean is that Erica can live in my room, and I can live with Mike for a while." "I refuse." After Mike finished speaking, he looked at Grandma Connie and asked for her opinion. "There is a vacant side hall in the house, and I want them to live there temporarily." The side hall used to be Grandma Connie's storage room, but after the last old things sale, the house was basically vacant. "As long as it is slightly decorated, it can be lived in. It's okay." That room was originally prepared for Peggy, Grandma Connie said with a smile, "but in a while, you need to take them to clean up first. I have to send John home." "No problem." Mike nodded and took on the task. After the accommodation of Peggy and her sister was arranged, only George looked a little resentful, but no one else had any objections. Next, while Grandma Connie drove Professor John home, Mike also took Peggy and her sister to their room. The room that can be used as a storage room is naturally not small, and it is more than enough for 2 people. Mike found 2 sets of new quilts and built 2 simple floor beds for the 2 sisters with wooden boards. "Today's time is a bit rushed. I will come to help you clean up when I have time." After busying with the floor bed, Mike walked to the door and said, "After all the trouble, it was already very late. You go and rest, Mike. Leave the rest to us." Although the room was still a little messy, for Peggy, she was already very satisfied. "Okay, good night." Mike didn't act pretentiously. He waved to the 2 sisters and turned to leave. Then, only the 2 sisters were left in the room, and the atmosphere instantly became quiet. Read the correct version in 1619 book bar. After a while, Erica broke the silence. "Mike looks very reliable. I don't know who will be so lucky to take him down." Hearing her sister's words, Peggy's face darkened, and she warned seriously, "Don't you want to hit on him?" "I'm just telling the truth." Erica smiled and teased, "Why are you so nervous? Are you interested in him?" TSK, it's a pity that you are still a little kid." After saying that, she looked at her sister who was expressing dissatisfaction with a cold face, and her smile became more presumptuous. Just like the situation of little George, Erica was very happy to see her genius sister being humiliated. On the other side, Peggy, who didn't say a word, just stared at her sister with her eyes. "Forget it, I won't tease you anymore." Erica sighed. He's such an excellent man, I can't control him. I advise you not to have any illusions. Otherwise, the person who knows you best may be your enemy, or of course your sister. Erica happened to have both of these. Moreover, Erica, who was mixed in various parties, could easily feel that Mike didn't have any thoughts about her in that aspect. Similarly, the other party's attitude towards his sister was more like taking care of a child. You don't need to care about my affairs. Peggy saw her sister's strange eyes, which made her feel very uncomfortable. Hey, Erica sneered, and didn't dwell on this issue anymore. Then, she changed the topic and asked, what's the situation at home? From what you said, our parents are going to reconcile? It is indeed very likely that they will reconcile. Talking about the situation at home, Peggy told her sister everything that happened today. On the other side, Mike, who was about to go back to his room, was also pulled to the living room by Grandma Connie, who came back. Tell me, what's the situation with the other girl? Grandma Connie didn't dare to ask at Cooper's house before. Now the opportunity is just right. After Grandma Connie got herself a bottle of beer, she looked like she was listening to gossip seriously. Nothing. Didn't I say before that Peggy's parents need some private space, so I brought Erica here, Mike explained. That's all? Grandma Connie, who didn't hear the explosive inside story, seemed a little dissatisfied. That's all. Mike nodded. TSK, boring. Grandma Connie took a big sip of beer and slumped down on the sofa. I'm going to bed. You should drink less and go to bed early. Mike was no longer surprised by Grandma Connie's reaction. Got it. Grandma Connie drank and waved her hand, motioning Mike to leave quickly. Chapter 180 to questioning faith. The next morning, Mike, who was still sleeping late, was woken up by Peggy outside the door. What's up? Mike opened the door, still in a daze. Grandma Connie asked me to call you to breakfast. Peggy stared at the strand of hair on Mike's head and said with a smile. Because he hadn't woken up yet, Mike still had a lazy smell. I know, I'll be out in a while. Mike rubbed his eyes and replied. Under normal circumstances, Grandma Connie, who knew that Mike would sleep in on the weekend, would not usually call him to have breakfast. Today, maybe because Peggy and her sister were at home, Grandma Connie made a very rich breakfast. When Mike changed his clothes, washed up and came to the dining room, he happened to see Peggy and her sister helping to carry breakfast out from the kitchen. After the four of them sat down, Mike looked at the milk, juice, burritos, sandwiches and other foods on the table, and asked curiously, Connie, is today's breakfast too rich? You know, Grandma Connie still owed a lot of gambling money outside, and her recent financial situation is not optimistic. This is all thanks to Peggy and the others. Linda paid me a large sum of living expenses. Grandma Connie explained with a smile. Earlier, Peggy called home and said that she was doing well here. She also told her parents about her sister's situation here. After hearing about this situation, Linda, who had reconciled with her husband, immediately said that she would give Grandma Connie some more care fees. After a hearty breakfast, Peggy asked, Mike, what are your plans for today? Knowing that her parents had reconciled and her relationship with her sister had eased, Peggy looked very happy now. I've made an appointment with someone to learn a musical instrument together. Mike thought for a while and said, Katie and the others are now very interested in learning musical instruments. If it weren't for the need to help Peggy solve the problem, Mike should have gone yesterday to study musical instruments with several beautiful girls. Learning a musical instrument? I'm also a little interested. Can you take me with you? Peggy asked immediately. Mike's instrument is not suitable for children to participate. He declined. I'm afraid it's not convenient. If you are bored later, you can go to Cooper's house to play. Peggy wanted to say something else, but was pulled aside by her sister. Peggy, you are too anxious. Mike's look obviously has his own private affairs. If you are too nosy, it will make people hate you. Erica, who has more life experience, knows more than her sister. If the relationship between the two had not eased last night, she would not have reminded her sister. In her opinion, her sister obviously has some special feelings for Mike. But this kind of behavior of rushing to cling to someone is very unwise. And to be honest, Erica is not optimistic about her sister's little thoughts. Not long after, a pink convertible carrying several beautiful women stopped at the door of Connor's grandmother's house. "Mike, we are here to pick you up," Regina, who was driving, shouted. "I'll be there soon," Mike replied, and then waved to the 3 people in the room. "I'll leave first. Call me if you have anything." After that, Mike got into the sports car and disappeared in a flash under the gaze of the 3 people. "Those girls are so beautiful. One of them must be Mike's girlfriend," Erica whispered, and then raised her eyebrows to her sister. In her opinion, the girls who just came to pick up Mike were all very good looking. If her sister really had ideas about Mike, there would be absolutely no advantage. "Grandma Connie, among those girls just now, is there Mike's girlfriend?" Peggy turned around and asked. "Of course, those few are." Grandma Connie smiled and said. In fact, Mike did not deliberately conceal his private life. Grandma Connie and the Cooper family knew that he had several confidants. "Okay, Grandma is going out too." Grandma Connie obviously had an appointment with Professor John today. So, she said to the 2 sisters, "You can choose to play computer at home, or go to the Cooper family across the street to play." "Let's go across the street." Erica is a person who can't sit still. She definitely doesn't want to stay alone with Peggy at home. Moreover, from the previous contact, little George from the Cooper family across the street is a very interesting person. So Erica pulled her sister, who was a little lost, and walked to the opposite door. Mike, who had studied musical instruments for a day, came to the Cooper family in the evening and saw a lively scene. Peggy's family, plus Grandma Connie and Professor John, made the originally spacious room seem a little crowded at this moment. "Mike, come and sit down." Grandma Connie took the lead in greeting. At the dining table, the Cooper couple and the Berry couple talked and laughed, and they seemed to have a very close relationship. Missy and Peggy also seemed to have become very good friends. On the other side, little George was also paying attention to Erica. After looking around, only little Sheldon sat silently aside, looking unhappy. "Okay, everyone is here." Mary looked around at everyone and said with a smile, "Let's start praying before dinner." Mary was in a good mood to be friends with a family that also had a super genius. Not to mention, she also contributed to helping Peggy. This gave Mary, a Christian, a sense of accomplishment. A perfect version of the book in 1619. During the following meal, Ms. Linda also took the initiative to express that she hoped Peggy could spend the next few weekends here. After enjoying the world of 2 people with her husband again, Ms. Linda seemed to have become more open-minded. She has decided to give her daughter more private space and also give herself more free time. After a pleasant dinner, the Berry couple thanked the Cooper family and Grandma Connie again before leaving with their daughter. "Linda is actually a good person. Maybe we should communicate more with her family." Mary watched the Berry family leave and said with emotion. Ms. Linda, who had figured out her thoughts, no longer had the attitude she had been holding before. This also made Mary's impression of her change a lot. "Mr. Berry is not bad either," George confided. "He promised to help me do a free dental checkup." Similarly, Missy has become good friends with Peggy, and George Jr. also has a tendency to fall in love with Erica again. So, in reality, except for Sheldon Jr., the relationship between the 2 families is actually very close. Another week passed, and it was Thanksgiving Day at the end of November. On this day, a big thing happened in the church. The daughter of a believer happened to die on this day. After praying for the deceased girl in the church, Mary still looked depressed when she returned home. Then, she was unable to calm down, so she built a small monument with stones in the yard. Then, Mary asked everyone in the Cooper family to present a bouquet of flowers to the deceased girl in front of the monument. "Mary, you don't have to be like this. Everyone will die one day." George saw that his wife was in a bad mood and comforted her. "I know people will die, but why today?" Mary said sadly. She is only 16 years old, about the same age as George and Mike, and she still has a bright future ahead of her. Why is God so unfair? Mary felt sad when she thought of a couple who were sad because they lost their daughter on Thanksgiving Day. She even thought it was God's fault and that the other party was too cruel. "Okay, Mike, we should go back." Grandma Connie, who had also presented the bouquet, called Mike and said, "Tonight, Grandma will prepare special barbecue for you." Compared to Mary's overreaction, Grandma Connie seemed very calm. "Aren't you going to persuade her?" Mike asked. Anyone could see that Mary was sad now. "No need." Grandma Connie shook her head and said very experiencedly, "She is just idle. She will be fine after a while." Grandma Connie, who is already about 70 years old, said that she has seen everything. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Questioning Faith, continued. Because of the girl's death, Mary was not in a good state all day on Thanksgiving. Thinking about the girl's incident over and over in her mind, she gradually began to question the existence of God. In her mind, if God really existed, he would never do such a cruel thing to his believers on Thanksgiving. In the evening, Grandma Connie, who had prepared a table of big meals, shouted to her daughter who was still in front of the monument in the yard thinking about life, "Mary, the family dinner is about to begin." Feeling the happy atmosphere at home and thinking of a couple who were sad because of the loss of their daughter. At this moment, Mary's faith in God was shaken. Since God cannot bless his believers, what she is doing now is meaningless. Frustrated, Mary stepped forward and kicked down the monument she had carefully built and then stormed into the house. Looking at his wife sitting at the dining table, exuding low pressure all over her body, George reminded her, "Mary, it's time to pray before dinner." "No, he doesn't deserve our thanks," Mary said angrily. George was not used to his wife's change. After a pause, he smiled and said, "Okay, let me skip the prayer and start eating directly." Then, in order to liven up the atmosphere, he raised the glass in front of him and continued, "Thank you, Connie, for preparing such a rich table of food for us. Thanksgiving dinner is all about the atmosphere." So, no matter whether it was juice or beer in front of them, everyone raised their glasses. Even Mary, who looked unhappy, raised her beer glass at this moment. After a round of thanks, Grandma Connie smiled and greeted everyone, "Try my special barbecue and turkey." Although, Mary had a cold face from beginning to end at this Thanksgiving dinner. But with Grandma Connie and George adjusting the atmosphere at the table was still very warm. And this dinner took a long time. After Mike and Grandma Connie left, Mary also sent the children and her almost drunk husband back to their rooms. After cleaning up the tableau, Mary took a bottle of beer from the refrigerator, went to the living room alone, and curled up on the sofa. Obviously, she has not let go of the girl's matter. Mom, when Mary was drinking alone, little Sheldon came to her. "Shirley, why haven't you slept yet?" Mary sat up from the sofa and asked with concern. "I saw that you are very unhappy today." Little Sheldon thought of comforting words. "I want to tell you that I love you." Mary felt much better after hearing her youngest son's true confession. She stood up and hugged him and said, "I love you too." After a long time, Mary, who had calmed down, said, "Okay, Shirley, you should go to bed." Then, she sent her youngest son back to the room and covered him with a quilt. Seeing her youngest son fall asleep, Mary finally smiled. The depression in her heart seemed to have disappeared for the most part. God has given her such a happy family. What else can she ask for? The next day, when Mary came to the church, she seemed to think of the girl again. She found Pastor Jeff and asked, "Is God really merciful?" Of course, everything we enjoy now is given by God. Although he didn't know what Mary was like now, Pastor Jeff still gave her a positive answer. Then, without waiting for Mary to continue asking, Pastor Jeff continued, "By the way, Mary, the church investigator is not here for a while, so I want you to take over this job. I will give you an extra 100 million yuan a week. What do you think?" "Really?" Mary heard that she had a more important job and her salary had increased a lot. She immediately showed a happy expression on her face. Before, her job content was to be Pastor Jeff's personal assistant, and the work content was very monotonous and boring. Every day, in addition to preparing coffee for the pastor, she would help him sort out documents. At most, she would file taxes for the church once a month. And she also shared the tax filing work with her smart little son. Therefore, Mary's previous work in the church was both very easy and very boring. But now the new job of the investigator is different. As a semi-welfare institution, the church also has the tasks of taking care of the surrounding lonely elderly and left behind children. This work can directly help others, which is very meaningful to Mary, who is still a little confused at the moment. By the way, there is an old man who retired from the second in our care list. I heard that he has a very strange personality. You should pay more attention to him. Pastor Jeff specifically reminded. According to the information of this old man, he has no children, no friends, and is a poor man with a strange personality. It is very difficult to deal with him. It's okay, leave it to me. Mary was full of energy. Then, she followed the address on the information, and found the old man's home. As soon as she entered the door, Mary smelled an indescribable strange smell in the room. And the small room was full of various garbage and debris. Hello, is anyone there? Mary found a place to stay in a pile of debris and shouted into the room. After a long time, an old man in a wheelchair came out of the room inside. He stared at Mary with a bad look and asked, "Who are you?" The old man looked very old, with age spots all over his face, and only his eyes were still bright and fierce. "I'm a church staff member. I'm here to help you," Mary said with a forced smile, trying not to feel uncomfortable. "Has the church changed people again? You look better than the previous people." The hoarse and low tone of the old man still made people feel uncomfortable. But after knowing Mary's identity, his eyes were not as scary as before. Check out the correct version in 1619 book bar. "Yes, I will take care of you for a while," Mary asked tentatively. "Excuse me, is there anything you need my help with now? Are you blind?" The old man looked around the messy room, and the meaning was obvious. "I'll help you clean up." Mary didn't say much, and then started to tidy up the room. On the other side, the old man stared at Mary for a few seconds, then turned his wheelchair, and went back to the back. After more than 2 hours, Mary, with sweat on her forehead, finally cleaned up the room. The sunlight shone into the clean and tidy little house, which made the family a little lively. "Is there anything else I can do?" Mary, who had been busy for a while, felt a sense of accomplishment when she saw the clean and tidy room. "I haven't taken a bath for a long time," the old man said dryly. He didn't seem to want to thank Mary for cleaning the room so clean. "You want me to help you take a bath?" Mary asked in surprise and embarrassment. However, the old man did not answer Mary's question. His sharp eyes stared at Mary again. "Okay, I know." Perhaps out of sympathy, Mary agreed to the request. Moreover, she did smell an unpleasant smell in front of the other party. Obviously, the old man did not lie. After more than an hour, the old man, who had washed and changed into clean clothes, sat back in the wheelchair. "If you have nothing else to do, I'll leave first." It was already afternoon, and Mary, who had been busy for most of the day, did not get a thank you from the other party. So, she felt a little dissatisfied, and didn't want to stay in this place any longer. "Wait," the old man called Mary and instructed, "Go and get me the box on the top of the closet." Mary, who was about to leave, patiently took down a small iron box from the top of the closet, and handed it to the old man. The box was opened, and a golden medal appeared inside. The old man stroked it carefully, as if he was lost in memory. "Can I leave?" Seeing that the other party didn't speak for a long time, Mary asked. "You go," the old man said without raising his head. When Mary walked to the door, she heard the old man say again, "If I die, please help me keep this medal." Hearing the word death, Mary stopped and looked back. The old man had gone back to the inner room. What a weird man. After shaking her head, Mary walked towards her home. At dinner time at the Cooper's house, Mary shared the old man's story with everyone. Seeing that his wife had returned to her previous state, George smiled and said, "You are an angel now. Mary did a good thing today that could be praised." Chapter 184 Research Team. Another day came. After Mary visited to kind-hearted lonely elderly people again, it was noon. As she was about to get off work, she suddenly thought of the old man with a strange personality yesterday. "I wonder if that guy's in a better mood today." As far as Mary knew, the old man had no friends. She thought to herself, maybe no one would visit him except herself. Maybe it was because she felt a sense of accomplishment to help others. Or maybe it was because of her overflowing sympathy. After thinking for a while, she turned around and walked towards the old man. "Hello, are you home?" Mary shouted several times outside the door, but no one answered. Thinking that the old man was inconvenient to move, or maybe he was hard of hearing, Mary pushed the door open skillfully and walked in. The room was still cleaned yesterday. Next to the windowsill, the old man put his medal on his chest with both hands and closed his eyes as if he was basking in the sun. What a weird person. He didn't even answer when he was at home. Mary muttered softly and came to the windowsill. Under the sunlight, the old man with his eyes closed at this moment looked very kind. This guy's not so annoying when he doesn't talk. Mary thought to herself, and then she found that the clothes on the old man were very thin. It was already the end of November, and although there was sunshine at noon, the temperature was not very high. Fearing that the old man would get sick from the cold, Mary found a blanket in the room and wanted to cover him. However, when she covered him with the blanket, she accidentally touched the old man's cold hand. Mary, who had a bad premonition, carefully pushed the old man's arm and found that his whole body was stiff. Mary couldn't believe that a person who was still fine yesterday died today. With a blank mind, she probed the other person's nose again. After confirming that the other person was really dead, Mary immediately called the church for help. Not long after, Pastor Jeff came to the old man's house with several church logistics staff. "Are you okay?" Pastor Jeff came to Mary, who was in a trance, and asked with concern. "No, it's okay." Mary shook her head slightly, and her voice was a little hoarse when she spoke. After personally witnessing the death of a life, she didn't look like she was okay now. He is already over 80 years old this year. It is not a bad thing for him to be in the arms of the Lord. Pastor Jeff comforted Mary for a few words, and then said, "You take a rest first. I will deal with the next matter." Half an hour later, watching the old man covered with a white cloth and pushed past her, Mary still found it difficult to accept that a life had just passed away. Especially, she had had contact with the other person yesterday. He passed away peacefully. Pastor Jeff came to Mary again and said, "You did a good job this time." "Actually, I didn't do anything." Mary, who had calmed down, thought about her attitude towards the old man yesterday and felt a little guilty. "Don't be modest. I can see that you did a better job than the previous investigators." Pastor Jeff recognized Mary's work from the room that had just been cleaned and the state of the old man who had just been washed. Seeing that the other party was still in a bad mood, Pastor Jeff continued, "I'll give you a few days off. Go home and have a good rest. I'll find someone else for the investigator's job." "No, I'm fine." Mary came back to her senses and said seriously, "I want to continue doing this job." Thinking that she might be able to help more people, Mary rejected Pastor Jeff's kindness. At this moment, she seemed to have found the meaning of life. In the next few days, the other people in the Cooper family also noticed the change in Mary's mental state. This change also made the atmosphere in the Cooper family return to the previous harmonious state. Time came to the beginning of December, another weekend. At the University of Texas, the research project of Professor John and Dr. Linkletter was finally approved. Mike, Peggy and little Sheldon were also invited to join the research project as assistants. The assistant's job is very simple, just serving tea and water to the researchers, organizing documents and other tedious things. This kind of work can actually be done by anyone. It is not difficult and boring. Of course, as special guests, Mike and the other two also have some privileges. In their spare time as assistants, they can check the internal research materials at will. Just like that, 2 weekends passed, and the research project of Professor John and others also came to the end of the first phase. A correct version in the 16:9 book forum. On this day, Professor John and Dr. Linkletter called Mike and the other two to come to the front. "You are all geniuses. Now Dr. Linkletter, and I want to see what you have learned during this period. If you can satisfy us, there will be surprises waiting for you," Professor John said with a smile. Obviously, this is a test. If the performance of Mike and the other two can satisfy Professor John and Dr. Linkletter, then they are likely to join the second phase of the project as researchers. As assistants, Mike and the other three have the right to audit, but not the right to make suggestions. If they can become researchers, then they are equivalent to having a certain say in the research project. This is quite attractive to anyone who likes special research. Okay, take this question as an example, and you can answer it. Professor John said, after writing a physics calculation question on the small blackboard. This time, the research project of Professor John, Dr. Linkletter and others is to derive a new physical analytical formula. This new formula can simplify many calculation processes under certain circumstances. Mike and his two companions, who had been following the research topic all the way, understood the purpose of this test and immediately lowered their heads to answer the questions on the verification paper in front of them. Mike, whose IQ exceeded 180, had greatly enhanced his logical thinking ability. Knowing the deduction of the new formula, the difficult problem on the blackboard was not difficult for him. After thinking for a while, he began to write quickly. Just when he was confident and about to come up with the answer, Peggy on the side had stopped calculating and raised her hand. Very good, Peggy, you only took less than 5 minutes. Professor John smiled and took the other party's answer sheet, saying, let me see your calculation steps. Yes, this time, the test for Mike and his two companions was not the answer to the difficult problem on the blackboard, but their problem-solving process. After receiving Peggy's answer sheet, Professor John looked at it carefully for a while, nodded with satisfaction, and then handed the paper to Dr. Linkletter on the side. Peggy, you passed. After seeing Peggy's problem-solving steps, Dr. Linkletter smiled and said, welcome to join our team. In fact, after this period of contact, Dr. Linkletter had a very good impression of Peggy, this smart girl. Thank you, Peggy smiled, but didn't show too much excitement. Chapter 185 Researcher Identity. I finished answering less than a minute after Peggy answered the question. Mike and little Sheldon spoke at the same time. Little Sheldon, stimulated by Peggy, sped up his answering speed. However, he didn't expect that Mike could also come up with the answer so quickly. In fact, in the heart of little Sheldon, he firmly believed that Mike was not as smart as himself. Seeing that the other party's answering speed was the same as his, he looked at Mike with a little pride. Then he took the initiative to stuff his answer sheet into Professor John's hand. Professor John did not favor one over the other. After he got two answers at the same time, he checked them carefully. After a while, after reading the two answers, he glanced at Mike and little Sheldon's faces and handed their answer sheets to Dr. Linkletter on the side. According to the procedure, after reading the two answers, Dr. Linkletter said, Mike, your steps in solving the problem are very rigorous. Now, on behalf of the team, I formally invite you to join us. Thank you for your appreciation. Mike paused and said, it's just that I have something to do next weekend, so I'm afraid I can't participate in the subsequent research. Now it is mid-December, and it's only a few weeks away from Christmas. At a private party on the previous weekend, Mike accidentally showed his musical talent in front of the girls, and Regina invited him to sing a song on behalf of the Devil Body Group. Queen Bee plans to let the Devil Body Group make a splash as a music group at the school's Christmas party. And Mike, whose music skill level is almost at the level of a 4th level expert, is indeed capable of helping the Devil Body Group accomplish such a feat. So he did not refuse, and agreed to the girls' request. Mike will give more preferential treatment to his own people. Moreover, in Mike's opinion, this new physics formula research project has basically ended. The remaining second phase of research is just to repeatedly prove the applicability of this new formula. For Mike, it doesn't make much sense to continue to follow. On the other hand, Dr. Linkletter also had a good impression of Mike. He asked, can you tell me why you quit? You know, as a formal researcher of the new formula, you can leave your name in the scientific research report after the project is completed. This is a great achievement for researchers. So Dr. Linkletter felt a little sorry that Mike chose to quit at this time. Next, I have to help the group prepare their Christmas party performance. Mike saw Dr. Link's good intentions and did not deliberately hide it from him. He chose to answer truthfully. What? Dr. Linkletter showed surprise on his face and was very dissatisfied with Mike's answer. In his opinion, physics research is much more important than a party performance. Forget it, Dr. Link. Mike is still young and has his own ideas. Don't bother. Professor John saw that Dr. Link wanted to question Mike, so he stopped him. Because of his relationship with Grandma Connie, Professor John also knew a little about Mike's private life. Moreover, Professor John, who was in love with Grandma Connie, also agreed with Mike's choice. Which is more important, love or career? This question is also a matter of opinion. Mike smiled at Professor John, as if to thank him for helping him out, and also as if to thank him for his generosity. On the other side, Peggy and Sheldon turned to look at Mike after hearing his decision. Peggy's eyes were a little disappointed, purely because she felt sorry for not being able to see Mike in the future. As for Sheldon, he was surprised that Mike actually let go of such a good learning opportunity. But soon, Sheldon suppressed his doubts. He turned his head and looked at Dr. Link expectantly, waiting for him to invite him to join the ranks of researchers. Sheldon. Dr. Link, who had calmed down, looked at Sheldon and asked seriously, "Can you tell me about the last few steps? Why do you use other ways to solve the problem?" When Sheldon was an assistant before, he put forward many personal opinions on this research project that were not in line with his status. Although his behavior did not have any impact on the research results. However, Sheldon's inappropriate desire to show off still greatly reduced Dr. Link's impression of him. It just so happened that he had some minor problems with his answers this time, and Dr. Link was in a bad mood. "I think it would be easier to use the existing methods to solve these steps." Little Sheldon looked at his answer sheet and forced an explanation. In fact, before, little Sheldon felt the pressure from Peggy, and in order to get the answer quickly, he used the familiar steps in the last few steps. However, simplifying the steps is a problem that needs to be considered in the second stage of the new formula research. Moreover, little Sheldon's old way of solving problems is obviously inconsistent with the theme of this research on the new formula. A correct version in the 16:9 book bar. "It seems that you haven't understood the purpose of our research project this time," Linklater sentenced. "So, unfortunately, Sheldon, you can't participate in our second stage of research as a researcher." "Why? I don't accept it." Little Sheldon expressed strong dissatisfaction after hearing the verdict. "No reason." Dr. Link didn't waste any words to explain, and turned and walked out. After he finished speaking, he wanted to take advantage of the break time and go back to his private office to sit for a while. "Wait, Dr. Link." Professor John stopped him and said, "Sheldon's solution is correct. I think he is qualified to participate in our second phase of work as a researcher." Professor John, who was having a hot relationship with Grandma Connie, was ready to give little Sheldon some preferential treatment. Scientific research requires a rigorous attitude. Dr. Link stopped and explained, for Professor John's sake, no matter who made a mistake, they must accept the consequences. Who hasn't made a mistake yet? Professor John continued to argue. Sheldon is still young. For Connor's sake, how about giving him another chance? Professor John tried to play the emotional card. That's your business. Dr. Link shook his head impatiently and walked out of the laboratory quickly. After knowing that Grandma Connie was already taken, Dr. Link did not bother her too much. Similarly, he would not give any preferential treatment to her grandson because of Grandma Connie's relationship. What a conservative guy, Professor John complained, and then said to the depressed Sheldon, "Sorry, I'm afraid I can't help you this time." "Aren't you the person in charge of this project?" little Sheldon asked with the last bit of hope. "Drive Link is also the person in charge, and we have the same rights," Professor John explained. "So my authority alone is not enough for you to become a researcher directly." "I understand." Little Sheldon thought for a while and asked, "If I can convince Dr. Link, do I still have a chance to become a researcher?" "Of course," Professor John echoed, and then said, "but I advise you not to waste your energy. I know Link's character very well. Once he makes a decision, he will not change it easily." Obviously, Professor John has seen that little Sheldon has some small thoughts. That's not necessarily the case. Maybe I can succeed. In order to become a formal researcher, little Sheldon decided to try again. He looked at Professor John and asked, "Can you tell me about Dr. Link and Grandma Connie?" In order to achieve his goal, little Sheldon may be thinking of selling grandma tactics again. Chapter 186 Researcher Identity, continued. Just as Sheldon was thinking about how to convince Dr. Link, Mike, who was chatting with Peggy, had his mobile phone ring. "Hello, Regina. You're already at the door. Okay. I'll be down soon. After learning that Regina had come to the entrance of the University of Texas to pick him up, Mike hung up the phone, said hello to Professor John, and walked out. When he passed by Dr. Link's private office, he went in and thanked him for his care during this period. Mike could feel Dr. Link's kindness to him. After that, when he said goodbye to Dr. Link and came to the entrance of the university, he saw Regina sitting in a pink convertible at a glance. She had gained weight because she was deceived into eating energy foods before, but after this period of continuous communication with Mike, she had lost all the weight that should be lost. Of course, the rich parts were mined and became more magnificent. At this moment, the girl in a glittering pink suit, combined with the luxury car, had a unique charm. Regina, who had been looking at the gazes of passers-by with a cold face, smiled immediately when she saw Mike coming and greeted him. Mike, this way. Mike, on his side, also ignored the jealous gazes of the men around him and sat in the passenger seat skillfully. Why don't you raise the roof? The temperature outside is generally no more than 10 degrees now, and girls don't wear thick clothes for the sake of beauty. It is very unwise to drive a convertible in this situation. I'm just afraid that you can't find me. Regina tilted her head and said coquettishly. It's hard to imagine that the queen bee with a strong personality in the past also has such a petite side. After receiving a hug from Mike, Regina immediately raised the roof of the car and started the car. Karen and the others are waiting for us at home, Regina said while driving the car. Besides, Mom has already helped us contact the recording studio. How are the songs you are preparing? Knowing that her daughter was going to form a band and make a splash at the school's Christmas dance, Amy, who was worried about having nothing to do, showed great interest. If possible, she would like to join her daughter's band to have some fun. Christmas song. Mike thought for a moment and said, I already have a draft in my mind. I can edit it into a complete work after I go back and polish it. Although Mike didn't pay much attention to the song before, it was not difficult for him to deal with such a propositional work with a huge amount of entertainment works in his mind. Just a moment ago, he had already thought of a Christmas song for the girls. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. This Christmas song performed by a girl group is very suitable for the requirements of the Devil Body group. I know you are the best. Regina heard that her group's song had been settled and turned around happily and was about to give Mike a kiss. Watch the road. Watch the road. Mike hurriedly reminded the girl who was driving. On the other side, in the laboratory of the University of Texas, Professor John was also vividly telling little Sheldon how he repelled Dr. Link, who wanted to chat up Connor's grandmother at the party. In his story, Dr. Link became the bad guy who harassed Grandma Connie. He was the flower protector who successfully defeated the bad guy and won the heart of the beauty. The story of the knight and the princess. The more Sheldon listened, the more he felt something was wrong. It's not Sheldon's fault that he is sensitive. The story that Professor John is telling now is the familiar story of a hero saving a beauty. However, he put himself in the role of the hero. Grandma Connie is naturally the beautiful woman who was saved, and Dr. Link unfortunately became the clown who harassed the beauty and was defeated by the hero. How about it? Do you want to hear some details? Professor John was a little into the play. He himself was about to believe that it was he who protected Grandma Connie at the party that day. Thank you. No thanks. Little Sheldon shook his head in resistance and then thought about it and said, I have thought about how to convince Dr. Link. The original intention of Sheldon to chat with Professor John was not to listen to the other party's story of a hero saving a beauty, but to find out about Dr. Link. Now, from Professor John's story, he knows that Dr. Link is also interested in Grandma Connie. So a bold plan has already taken shape in his mind. Are you sure you can convince Dr. Link? Professor John looked at Sheldon's confident look and asked in disbelief. Of course, I have already grasped the opponent's weakness. This time it will definitely succeed. After Sheldon finished speaking, he ran out of the laboratory in a hurry. He couldn't wait to implement his plan. Confused and not understanding Sheldon's idea, Professor John turned to look at Peggy in the corner and asked, do you know what Sheldon wants to do? I'm not interested in his business. Peggy responded and leaned back to the corner with a face full of words. Don't bother me. It seems that Mike's departure made the little girl feel very unhappy. Oh, okay Professor John. who was bored, shrugged awkwardly and went to his private lounge. On the other side, in Dr. Link's private office, Sheldon served him a cup of hot coffee attentively. A perfect version of the book in 1619. Anything else? Dr. Link took a sip of coffee, looked at the little Sheldon who had not left in front of him, and said, "If it's about the researcher, don't say anything." The coffee bribery method failed, and little Sheldon started the second plan, the tactic of selling grandma. "If you want, I can introduce my grandma to you." Little Sheldon continued with burning eyes under Dr. Link's surprised expression. "Of course, in exchange, I need you to agree that I will participate in the next research work as a researcher." However, just when little Sheldon felt good about himself, Dr. Link finally couldn't help it and shouted angrily, "Get out!" Little Sheldon's behavior was tantamount to insulting Dr. Link, an elderly bachelor. Seeing that the tactic of selling grandma failed and instead angered the other party, little Sheldon hesitated to walk out. However, when he walked to the door, his eyes lit up and he turned around and said, "Drive Link, do you like toy trains? Maybe I can give you one." In the cognition of little Sheldon, no one can resist the temptation of toy trains. This time it is an upgraded version of the bribery method. "Get out." Before Sheldon could be proud, Dr. Link's roar rang out again in the room. Faced with the doctor's even more exuberant anger, the smile on Sheldon's face froze, and he hurriedly fled the room. Why is this? There are people who don't like toy trains. Sheldon, who returned to the laboratory, was full of doubts. "Don't make a sound, you're disturbing me." Peggy in the corner heard Sheldon's mumbling and scolded impatiently. Sheldon was a little afraid of Peggy's cold face. However, in order to become a researcher of the project, he still sought help. "Peggy, do you think there is any way to make Dr. Link recognize me?" Sheldon was still optimistic about Peggy's wisdom. "Maybe you can become friends with him first." Peggy, who was annoyed, glared at Sheldon and gave him a bad idea. After hearing Peggy's method, Sheldon thought for a while, nodded in agreement. "You're right, why didn't I think of it?" The little girl's words opened a new door for him. Young Sheldon realized that, if he could become friends with Dr. Link, the other party would have no reason to refuse his small request. Chapter 187 Christmas Song. In the music room of Regina's house, Mike wrote down the music and lyrics of "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" by hand under the girls' gaze. Amid the girls' exclamations, Regina took the song list and looked at it several times and said happily, "With this, our Devil Body group will definitely make a splash at the party hall." "Can you read the 5-line music?" Mike asked curiously. This question really stumped the girl. The embarrassment on Regina's face flashed away, and she smiled and said, "I believe in your ability, Mike. This will be a good song." The learning ability of several girls is not as strong as Mike. After nearly a month of music theory learning, only Katie and Gretchen among the 4 girls can understand simple music scores. As for Regina and Karen, the 2 naive girls, they have not yet been able to get started with music theory knowledge. But again, although Regina can't read the 5-line music, it doesn't prevent her from thinking that Mike is amazing. Seeing Regina trying to get away with it, Mike shook his head and said, "Okay, since we already have the song, I will show you how to sing it. When you have learned the song, we will go to the studio to record a demo." With Amy as a logistics person, Mike didn't have to worry about the recording of the song. Instead, the speed at which the girls learned the new song was the key. "Then how do we choose the instruments for our performance?" Regina asked with concern. Queen Bee has not forgotten that the direction of the Devil Body group's transformation is a band combination. Since it is a band, it is inevitable to play instruments. It can be seen that she really wants her Devil Body group to have a better performance at the school Christmas party. Don't worry about the instruments. Wait until the master tape comes out. It's not that Mike looks down on the Devil Body group, but with the girls' musical level, there are not many instruments for them to perform. Mike, who can see the girls' strengths and weaknesses, continues, "Don't worry, with me, your Christmas party performance will definitely be a success." With the characteristics of absolute pitch, he has enough confidence to produce a high-quality song. After giving the girls a reassurance, Mike sat down at the piano and taught them the new song by himself. The whole afternoon was spent in teaching. "Okay, you have seen the complete song. Keep practicing in private. I believe it won't be long before you can reach the level required for recording a demo. Mike, who finished teaching the song in the evening, said to the girls, "Mike, do you want to stay for dinner? I'll ask Amy to prepare a big meal for us." Regina saw that Mike was about to leave and tried to persuade him to stay. "No, someone at home is waiting for me to eat." Mike refused. He had overestimated the learning ability of Regina and Karen, the two naive girls. In order to make the to learn the song without being out of tune this afternoon, Mike spent too much energy, so now he just wants to go back and rest and recharge his energy. Well, I was going to ask you if you have any other little singing tips. Since you're in a hurry to go back, we can only discuss these questions tomorrow. In order to make a splash, Regina, who has poor learning ability, is very active in learning enthusiasm. Well, I'll sort out some knowledge in this area when I go back, and we'll discuss it tomorrow. Mike waved his hand calmly and said goodbye, then see you tomorrow on the other side. Seeing Mike leave, Katie and several other girls also chose to go with him. In the Texas University Research Laboratory, little Sheldon, who was determined to get close to Dr. Link, kept looking for opportunities to ask him questions during the afternoon audit. Yes, asking questions was the way that little Sheldon thought of to get close to Dr. Link. However, little Sheldon didn't know that his way of constantly bothering others had made Dr. Link, who had endured harassment for an afternoon, feel very irritated. So after finishing the afternoon work, Dr. Link turned around and walked out of the school. "Wait for me, Dr. Link." Little Sheldon, who thought he had made friends with the other party in the afternoon, caught up with Dr. Link in the corridor. Just like chatting with an old friend, little Sheldon said, "Drive Link, can I join the research team as a researcher next?" "Why do you say that?" Dr. Link was still a little unaccustomed to the familiar way of communication between little Sheldon. "This is just a small request between friends," little Sheldon said with a smile. As mentioned earlier, little Sheldon has unilaterally believed that he and Dr. Link are friends, and it is reasonable for good friends to give each other a little convenience. "Friends? Me and you?" Dr. Link also reacted at this time, while little Sheldon had behaved like that before. He stared at the other party and said seriously, "We have never been friends, and there will be no such possibility in the future. Don't waste time on me. I will not agree to you becoming a researcher on the project." After that, Dr. Link took a long step and left little Sheldon behind. Read the correct version in 1619 book bar. At this time, Professor John, who came out later, saw little Sheldon in the corridor. He asked with concern, "How is it? Did you convince Dr. Link?" "No, the other party's personality is really difficult to deal with. All of little Sheldon's plans failed, which made him feel a little depressed." Seeing little Sheldon's lost expression, Professor John, who was afraid that the other party was hit, encouraged him, "Don't give up, you will have another chance in the future." Professor John's later has a wide range, but it does not include this physics research project. Again, Dr. Link has a stubborn temper, and he generally won't change what he believes. Therefore, it is almost impossible for little Sheldon to get the researcher quota from him again. "Don't worry, I won't give up." Little Sheldon, who is in a disadvantageous situation, obviously misunderstood Professor John's meaning. He thought the other party was encouraging him not to give up fighting with Dr. Link. Professor John shook his head and said nothing more about little Sheldon's sudden resurgence of fighting spirit. Later, when Grandma Connie was on her way to pick up Sheldon and Peggy, Sheldon was still thinking about how to get a position as a project researcher from Dr. Link. Not long after, Karen, who was driving Mike to Cooper's house, happened to meet Grandma Connie and the other two who were also coming back. "Mike, what did you do this afternoon?" Peggy ran to Mike and asked after watching Karen leave. "I didn't do anything. I just wrote a Christmas song for someone," Mike said bluntly. "You can write songs?" Peggy asked in surprise. "Can you show me?" Of course, writing songs is not something shameful. After Mike answered, he was about to take out the manuscript paper for composing the song. "Mike, Peggy, it's so cold outside. Let's go in quickly. I'm afraid Mary has already prepared our dinner." Grandma Connie interrupted the conversation between Mike and the others. After dark, the temperature outside was indeed lower. So Mike said to Peggy, "Let's go in first." We can watch the songs anytime. Then, Peggy saw Mike's back as he entered the house. Although she was a little unhappy, she still followed him obediently. Chapter 188. People with strange personalities will end up alone. Mike, who was exhausted after a tiring day, went back to wash up and prepare to rest after dinner at Cooper's house. However, not long after he lay down, there was a knock on the door. "Who? Is it Peggy?" Mike, who sat up in his pajamas, asked. Usually at this time of night, Grandma Connie would not come to Mike's room. Besides Grandma Connie, there was only Peggy at home. "Are you still awake?" Peggy pushed open the door and entered the room skillfully. After seeing Mike in a white pajamas, she asked knowingly. Mike, on his side, found that the little girl sat next to him without any hesitation and couldn't help but frowned and asked, "What's the matter?" In front of Mike, who has good acting skills, the little girl's worried look could not be hidden at all. Oh, Peggy acted as if she didn't care and said, "I'm a little curious about the song you created. Just for this?" Mike shook his head helplessly, took out a manuscript from the pocket of his changed clothes, handed it to the little girl and said, "Here, this is a new song I wrote. If you like, you can take it back and study it slowly." Faced with Mike's obvious behavior of sending her away, Peggy didn't seem to feel it. She took the manuscript and said, "I'm just a little curious about your creative ability, and I'll help you check it." Then, she didn't mean to leave at all, and sat on the side of the boat, and started to study the song. For a super intelligent talent like Peggy, even if she hasn't learned to compose music, it's not difficult for her to appreciate the quality of a song. On the other side, Mike, who was ready to go to bed, saw the little girl carefully observing the new song, and it was not good to drive her out. So, he squinted his eyes and half leaned on the pillow, waiting for the other party to finish appreciating it. Fortunately, the little girl read very fast. After a while, Peggy, who had finished studying the new song, looked up and said, "It's a very good Christmas song. Is it for the girl who sent you back?" "Yes, it's a song for the devil body group she belongs to," Mike admitted, and then whispered, as if he was whispering. "In fact, the girls in the devil body group want to use this song to make a splash at the school's Christmas party. With a creative genius like you, their wishes can be easily realized if nothing unexpected happens." Peggy lowered her head and said in a somewhat gloomy tone. At this moment, Mike realized that the little girl's mood was not right. It's like a child at home who sees adults giving candy to other children and becomes jealous. "If you want, I can also write a nursery rhyme specifically for you. It's not difficult," Mike said immediately. Mike thought that Peggy's situation was easy to appease. Since the other party felt that it was unfair, why not give the other party a candy as well? Children's songs? Peggy, whose mood had been somewhat relieved, realized that the other party was treating her like a child, and said in resistance, "Thank you, I'm not very interested in singing." Okay, seeing the other party's reaction, Mike didn't mention the song again. Then, he put away the manuscript paper that the little girl threw aside, and seeing that the other party had no intention of leaving, he asked again, "Is there anything else?" Peggy, who has a high emotional intelligence, actually found that Mike was a little impatient. After thinking for a while, she found an excuse and said, "I want you to teach me how to play computer games. This reason is very reasonable, and can make the two stay for a while." Therefore, the more the little girl talked, the more confident she became. Computer games? Now, Mike, on his side, obviously couldn't keep up with the other party's train of thought. "Do you have time during the day?" Peggy said, "I want to play the game you played last time. It seems to be called Super Mario or something." The little girl supplemented and improved her excuse very well. Mike, on his side, realized that he really didn't take care of Peggy during the weekends she came. So he agreed, "Okay, you go turn on the computer first. I'll be there in a while." "Then hurry up." Peggy looked at Mike proudly and left the room contentedly. Computer games are just becoming popular now. Although they are not attractive to Mike, they are a new thing for others. Even Grandma Connie was addicted to computer games for a long time after learning how to play them. Here, when Mike, who was wearing a thick coat, came to the cubicle, Peggy, who was in front of the computer, had already opened the game interface. Half an hour later, under Mike's guidance, the little girl successfully reached the bottom of the level and saved the princess. Jump, jump. Oh, what a pity. As the plumber Mario fell into the lava, Mike, who was directing from the back, sighed. Playing this kind of operational game, sometimes the atmosphere is so good that even people watching from the sidelines will find it very interesting. Moreover, Mike discovered that Peggy, who has a very high IQ, is also very talented in games. It's okay, try again. You can definitely pass it, Mike encouraged from behind. There is a correct version in the 16:9 book forum. How about you show me again? Peggy turned around and said with a smile. Mike, who had been watching others operate for a long time, was also aroused with some interest. So, he sat in front of the computer and boasted, "Look how I use my life to save the princess." Then, watching Mike's various wonderful operations, Peggy, who was leaning on the side to watch the game, smiled unconsciously. Another half an hour passed, and as the little man operated by Mike successfully saved the princess, Peggy next to him also cheered at the right time. In fact, the little girl had the ability to pass the game before, but she had her own little thoughts and cleverly solved a flaw. This is how the next plot came about. Intelligence main attribute +1. On the other side, Mike, who had satisfied his addiction to games, accidentally got a property light bulb from the little girl, which made him smile. Is there such a benefit in playing games together? Mike then said, Peggy, if you want to play other games next time, you can come to me again. I promise to teach you. Okay, Peggy replied happily, and then asked, aren't you going to play today? No, it's already late today. Mike turned off the computer, looked at the little girl who was still very interested, and persuaded her, you should go to bed. Children who don't get enough sleep will not grow tall. Peggy, who already had some knowledge of body shape, nodded in agreement after hearing Mike's threatening speech and said, you are right. In order to grow up quickly, I should go to bed now. After sending away the little girl who behaved strangely, Mike also went back to his room to rest. When everyone fell asleep, on the other side of the Cooper family, little Sheldon, who had returned to his room early to lie down, tossed and turned, and couldn't fall asleep. He was still worried about the researcher's body shape, and he couldn't sleep that night. Little Sheldon, who had never experienced this kind of insomnia, knew very well that he needed sleep now, but the more he wanted to fall asleep, the more he couldn't fall asleep. Instead, his mind was extremely active, and he kept replaying the scene of Dr. Link rejecting him during the day. So, finally unable to bear this torture, little Sheldon got up, went to the landline, and called Dr. Link. Chapter 189 People with strange personalities will end up alone. Continued. Hello, Sheldon. Do you know what time it is now? Dr. Link, who was sleeping soundly, was still in a daze after being woken up by the phone. Okay, I agree to your request. Knowing the intention of Sheldon's call in the middle of the night, Dr. Link seemed to be moved by the other party's sincerity. Of course, it is more likely that he simply felt troubled and did not want to be harassed by the other party again. So he agreed to Sheldon's request, and before hanging up the phone, he specifically reminded him, don't call me again then. Dr. Link, who hung up the phone, pulled out the phone line directly for safety reasons. On the other side, at Cooper's house, Sheldon, who was still thinking about how to convince Dr. Link, was stunned after hearing the other party's response clearly. Happiness came too suddenly, making him feel unreal. Especially now it is still in the middle of the night, when people are most likely to dream. Did I succeed? After talking to himself for a while, Sheldon called the other party again, wanting to confirm the good news. However, it is impossible for anyone to answer the phone this time. Listening to the busy tone on the phone, Sheldon was not disappointed. With his image memory method, he knew very well that he had not dreamed before. So, after successfully obtaining the status of a project researcher through the harassment method, he put the phone back in place and walked back to the room with satisfaction. Then, having solved the problem, he soon fell asleep. But Sheldon didn't know that, because of his harassment method, an old man had insomnia tonight. After all, the quality of sleep of the elderly is generally not high. It is very difficult to fall asleep again after being woken up in the middle of the night. The next day in the laboratory of the University of Texas, looking at the obvious dark circles on Dr. Link's face, Sheldon asked with concern, "Drive Link, did you have insomnia yesterday? I have a lot of experience in this area." Sheldon, who also had insomnia experience, seemed to want to share some sleeping experience with Dr. Link in order to thank him for making him a researcher. But his way of chatting up was tantamount to touching a sensitive nerve in Dr. Link's mind. "Shut up, Sheldon," Dr. Link said a little excitedly. "If you have anything to say, go to Professor John, and don't bother me anymore." Obviously, he couldn't afford to cause trouble for little Sheldon, so he chose to avoid him. In fact, even if they were both project researchers, Dr. Link still had the right to refuse to communicate with little Sheldon. "Sheldon, how did you offend Dr. Link?" He looked very emotional. Professor John looked at little Sheldon, who came to him and asked curiously, "I don't know either." Little Sheldon thought for a while and said truthfully, "I thought I had a good relationship with Dr. Link. In fact, we talked on the phone last night." After hearing that, little Sheldon called Dr. Link late at night. Professor John, who was also an elderly person, felt a little sympathetic to him. It's just that the occasion was not right now, and Professor John didn't express any opinions on the matter. Then, he responsibly assigned little Sheldon and Peggy the work to be done today. However, in the eyes of ordinary people, the very tedious and complicated verification work is not very difficult for little Sheldon and Peggy, two super geniuses. Not long after, the two completed a day's workload. Little Sheldon, who wanted more learning opportunities, approached Professor John again. However, the new formula research project did not need to be rushed, so Professor John rejected little Sheldon's request. Little Sheldon, who had nothing to do, returned to his seat and saw Peggy, who was in a daze, and asked, "Peggy, do you have any way to give us more mobile phone opportunities?" In little Sheldon's opinion, sitting here all the time was a waste of this great learning opportunity. Peggy, who was thinking about the game experience last night, was interrupted and said unhappily, "Sheldon, do you know the difference between you and Mike? I'm smarter than him, and more diligent than him." Little Sheldon answered confidently. In his opinion, it was very unwise for Mike to give up this learning opportunity. Moreover, the other party took so much time every weekend to date girls, which was a complete waste of precious learning time. Overall, little Sheldon was very sure that he would be better than Mike in the future. No, compared to us staying here and dealing with data, what Mike is doing now is more meaningful. Peggy said, "In the American school, a sociable high school student is obviously more popular than a nerd." But Sheldon, who loves science, didn't realize this at all. "Why do you say that?" Sheldon disagreed with Peggy's evaluation. Seeing Sheldon's reaction, Peggy was not surprised. She motioned for him to look at Professor John and Dr. Link, who were working, and asked, "What do you think of them? They are all great people. I hope I can be like them in the future." Sheldon said seriously. It has to be said that it was because of Professor John's university physics course that Sheldon became very interested in physics. In a way, the other party can be regarded as his academic life mentor. A correct version in the book Bar of 1629. As for Dr. Link, because of the previous contact, Sheldon also has a great liking for him. So to sum up, Sheldon highly respects these two university professors. It seems that I'm right. Peggy smiled and said, "You are the same kind of people as them." "What do you mean by that?" Although Sheldon felt that what Peggy said was right, he still heard some provocation in her tone. Statistics show that people who are only fascinated by science will gradually become weird and unable to make friends. In the end, they can only choose to die alone, Peggy said bluntly. This is also what the little girl said in her heart. If possible, she doesn't want to stay here at all. Going out and playing with friends is what she wants to do most now. Lonely and die alone. Little Sheldon was reluctant to agree with Peggy's words. But soon he realized that what the other party said seemed to be right. The current situation of Professor John and Dr. Link can indeed be regarded as lonely and die. This discovery scared Sheldon, and then he used his smart brain, thought for a while, and said, "I have many friends and I'm not lonely. Can you give an example?" Peggy asked seriously. Mike, he is one of my good friends. Little Sheldon replied. Mike has many friends, and he may not be able to take care of you in the future. Peggy changed the subject. and continued to ask, "So, besides him, do you have other friends?" This little Sheldon was asked, and he didn't have many friends that he could recognize. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he said in surprise, "Dan. Besides Mike, Dan is also my good friend." Looking at the look of relief on little Sheldon's face, Peggy said affirmatively, "If I'm not mistaken, the Dan you are talking about should also be a nerd with few friends." "How do you know?" Little Sheldon showed a surprised expression on his face. "Isn't that the best example over there?" Peggy gestured to Professor John and postdoctoral Link again and said. The problem returned to the original point. Looking at the two old men who had a relatively harmonious relationship, little Sheldon fell into self-doubt. At this moment, even becoming a project researcher was not enough to make him happy. Although little Sheldon had a weird personality, he still couldn't accept the guess that he would die alone. On the other side, Peggy, who was no longer disturbed, showed a satisfied smile. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Follow-up. In Regina's music room, from the performance of the girls in the Devil Body group, it can be seen that they have practiced the new song seriously after disbanding yesterday. After more than an hour of adjustment by Mike, the girls can cooperate with each other and sing the whole new song. Next, they only need to continue practicing step by step for a while to reach the level of recording new songs in the recording studio. After the singing problems were basically solved, Mike clapped his hands, gathered the girls together, and said, "Let's discuss the instruments suitable for your performance." Under the interested eyes of several girls, Mike looked at Big Wave Karen and said, "You have a good sense of rhythm. Next, practice the drum set specifically." Mike, who has the characteristic of absolute pitch, can easily identify the musical talent of others. Although there is no tone-deaf girl in the Devil Body group, their musical talent is not very high. Karen, who is tall among the short people and usually looks silly, is relatively better in terms of musicality. After deciding on the instrument, Mike continued under the expectant gaze of the other three girls. "Regina, Gretchen, you two try the guitar first. Katie, you try the bass." After assigning the instruments to be performed, Mike taught the girls some simple chords and some simple percussion rhythms. However, Regina and the other two did not learn very well, but Karen, who was playing the drums, seemed to have found some feelings. "You should practice like this first, and see the effect next weekend," Mike said to the three girls with a headache, listening to the messy chords. To be honest, according to their learning situation, it is very likely that they will not be able to perform on stage with instruments on Christmas Day. "Mike, won't you perform on stage with us on Christmas Day? After all, the song is created by you," Regina asked while holding the guitar. Regina can become the queen bee of the school, and she is not really a naive person. For example, now, this queen bee has her own little thoughts. She seemed to know very well that the music level of the members of the Devil Body group was not up to the requirement of a blockbuster Christmas performance. If Mike was brought in, on the one hand, the charm of the Devil Body group could be shown in front of everyone. On the other hand, the performance of the team could be more assured. After all, with Mike as a professional to back him up, the worst result would not mess up the performance. Hearing the girls' invitation, Mike thought for a while and said, "We'll see when the time comes. If the girls' level is still not up to standard on the Christmas performance day, then he can only come out to save the day." To be honest, the song performance of the Devil Body group was also planned by him. Seeing that Mike did not refuse directly, Regina, who was already very familiar with him, realized that this matter had a chance. However, the girl did not say anything more to annoy people. After showing a bright smile, she took the initiative to go aside and practiced her guitar skills seriously. It can be seen that since being isolated, the queen bee has grown a lot in dealing with things. Next, the day was spent slowly as Mike constantly corrected the girls' mistakes. In the evening, Katie drove her father's SUV and sent Mike back to the door of his house. When they were parting, Katie seemed to suddenly remember something and said, "By the way, Mike, Teacher Sharon asked me to tell you to go to the Mathematical Olympiad study room on Monday. Did she say what it was about? Mike asked. Since getting the right to study freely, Mike has not been to the Mathematical Olympiad study room for more than a month. Now there is only more than a month before the Mathematical Olympiad League at the end of the year. It is very likely that Teacher Sharon asked him for the league. I don't know. Teacher Sharon didn't say. Katie shook her head. Okay, I'll go to the Mathematical Olympiad study room tomorrow. Mike, who had a guess in his heart, didn't hesitate too much. See you tomorrow. Katie smiled and waved, ready to leave. See you tomorrow. After watching the girl leave, Mike went directly to Cooper's house for dinner. Due to a combination of reasons, after George found a job as a salesperson in a sporting goods store, Mike, who was not short of money, still paid for food to the Cooper family. Seeing Mike coming in, Grandma Connie smiled and greeted him. You're back. How are you preparing your songs? Mike did not choose to hide the fact that he wrote songs for the Devil Body group from Grandma Connie and others. We've almost finished rehearsing, and it should be enough for the performance on Christmas Day, Mike replied. Judging from the level of the school's Christmas party in previous years, as long as the program is not bad, they can perform on stage. Even if the girls in the Devil Body group can't sing the new songs well, they should be welcomed by students on Christmas Day with their beauty and high popularity. That's good. I will go to the scene to support you on Christmas Day. Grandma Connie, who likes the excitement, immediately said. I won't let you down. Mike still has some confidence in his new song. After laughing, he didn't say much about it and then sat down at the dining table. Mike, do you think I have a weird personality? Little Sheldon looked at Mike sitting next to him, tangled for a while, and asked in a low voice. Why do you ask that? Who told you something? Mike did not answer the other party's question directly, but asked curiously. Check out the correct version in the 16 to 9 book forum. Does Sheldon have a weird personality? There is no need to think about this question. The answer is definitely yes. No one told me anything. Little Sheldon shook his head. He didn't want to expose his discussion with Peggy. Anyway, the other party has been taken back by her parents. Without the question of the parties involved, little Sheldon didn't feel any pressure to lie. Then, he continued to whisper, I have collected information in this regard. The data shows that most people with weird personalities will eventually die alone. Yes, since he talked to Peggy about this, he was very worried that he would die alone, so he specifically looked for knowledge in this area. It's just that the result of checking the information was not ideal, which made little Sheldon even more worried. Mike, who saw some clues, said, Don't worry, Sheldon. You will meet many good friends in the future who will tolerate and accompany you. To be honest, little Sheldon will be lucky to meet good friends like Leonard and Penny in the future. Are you sure? Little Sheldon suddenly became happy. Of course Mike shrugged and also didn't explain too much on this issue. Just his positive attitude was enough to make little Sheldon happy. It was Monday, and as Christmas approached, the school had gradually become festive. Many small groups interested in the Christmas party began to prepare their own performances. After Mike rejected the invitations of several groups of girls, he accompanied several members of the Devil Body group to have lunch, and then went to the Olympiad study room with Katie. Hey, Mike. You are such a busy man, and you are finally willing to come to the study room. Kevin, the captain of the Olympiad team, dressed in hip-hop style, smiled and greeted him. Long time no see. Looking at the energetic captain of the Olympiad team, Mike also smiled and stretched out his hand and punched the other party. Dude, are you interested in joining my cool boy band? Kevin said familiarly, with your cooperation, our Christmas performance will definitely be liked by many girls. They will go crazy for us. From the fact that he always maintains a hip-hop style, it can be seen that Captain Kevin is a person who likes to show off. He would not miss the opportunity to show off at the Christmas party, which could attract people's attention. Before Mike came in, he had already persuaded the other two male members of the Mathematical Olympiad team to perform rap at the Christmas party. Chapter 191 Children. No, I may have other plans that day. Mike decisively rejected the overly enthusiastic captain of the Mathematical Olympiad. If nothing unexpected happens, he will come to the rescue of several girls from the Devil Body group that day. That's a pity. I even wrote a rap specifically for our group. Captain Kevin showed a regretful expression for not being able to pull Mike, a handsome guy, into his cool boy group. But soon, his eyes looked back and forth between Mike and Katie beside him for several times, showing a smile that all men understand, and said, "So that's it. I'm sorry." Since the last flyer incident, the rumor that Mike has a close relationship with several girls from the Devil Body group is no longer a secret in the school. Here, Captain Kevin, with an expression of "I understand," raised his eyebrows ambiguously and did not bother Mike and Katie again. On the other side, in the school library, little Sheldon, who had finished his lunch, looked at Dan opposite and asked, "Dan, do you think I will die alone?" It can be seen that dying alone has a great killing power on him. Even after being enlightened by Mike, Sheldon still wanted to get confirmation from his other friend, Dan. Dan, who had also finished lunch at this moment, was looking at other students playing in the corridor with envy. After hearing the question, he retracted his gaze, looked at Sheldon's face for a while, and said, "People like us who don't fit in will probably end up alone." Dan, who was pessimistic about life, gave his own answer. In fact, as foreigners, Dan's family lives a very difficult life in Texas. Not only can they not enjoy the various local welfare benefits, but even because of the local protection law, their family wants to buy a house of their own in Texas through hard work, and the procedures required are very complicated. This situation also makes Dan very pessimistic about his future. How could this happen? After hearing Dan's answer, Sheldon began to worry again. "Actually, your situation is better than mine," Dan analyzed calmly. "As a local, you can easily make more friends. If you are willing, this Christmas party performance may be a good opportunity." "Opportunity? Do you want me to participate in the Christmas performance?" Little Sheldon thought about the cost of participating in activities to make friends, and refused. "That kind of meaningless social interaction is a waste of time for me." In fact, little Sheldon knew that with his personality, he would probably be busy in vain if he took the initiative to make friends. Then there is no way. Dan, who seemed to have seen through everything, smiled and said, "It seems that we can only live alone until the end of our lives." Faced with Dan's open-minded performance at this moment, little Sheldon was also infected by the other party's emotions. At this moment, he felt that living alone until the end of his life did not seem so terrible with someone accompanying him. Soon, time came to the afternoon. When teacher Sharon entered the Olympiad study room, she saw Mike, who had returned to report. After she nodded slightly, she distributed test papers to the team members according to normal procedures. Seeing the Olympiad test paper again, Mike picked up the pen and began to answer confidently. His performance also made teacher Sharon, who was observing him on the podium, nod with satisfaction again. 10 minutes later, Mike finished all the exercises. It can be seen that the difficulty of this test paper increased a lot under the intention of teacher Sharon. However, for Mike, whose IQ reached 183, it was still not a big problem. He even found some different fun in the process of doing the questions. On the podium, teacher Sharon carefully browsed the test paper submitted by Mike and said, "Very good, Mike. Your Olympiad level has not decreased during this period." The main purpose of her calling Mike back this time was to observe his state. But from the results, Mike obviously passed the test. Guessing teacher Sharon's intention, he immediately asked, "Teacher, can I leave now?" To be honest, Mike, whose IQ has become higher now, does not think that he can learn any useful knowledge in the Olympiad team. Instead of wasting time here, he would rather take time to go to the small classroom and guide Regina and others to learn musical instruments. Yes, except for Katie, the other 3 members of the Devil Body group have temporarily stopped the collective activities in the school in the afternoon. In order to perform at Christmas, they all brought their instruments to school and wanted to use this afternoon to practice. In the mathematical Olympiad study room, teacher Sharon looked at the perfect test paper in front of her, then looked at Mike, thought for a while and said, "Due to your level, you can leave now. But after Christmas, I hope you can come back and study hard for a while." After Christmas, it was less than a month away from the College Mathematical Olympiad League. Obviously, teacher Sharon wanted to give her team members some intensive training during that time. "I will definitely be there, Mike," who guessed the other party's intention again, immediately made a promise. Then, he waved to Katie, who was working hard on the questions, and left the study room in a chic manner under the envious eyes of other mathematical Olympiad team members. "Teacher Sharon, can we leave after we finish the questions?" In the mathematical Olympiad study room, Kevin was tempted after seeing Mike's successful case. He also needed time to practice rap to prepare for the Christmas party. No, Teacher Sharon refused at first, then thought for a while and continued, "If you can reach Mike's level in mathematical Olympiad, I will agree to let you leave." A correct version in 1619 book bar. It seems that her words are very fair. But after hearing her words, Kevin pulled a long face and said, "He and that Sheldon are two perverts. How can I compare with them?" The other team members also saw how Mike and little Sheldon studied in the mathematical Olympiad team before. In 1 month, the two not only learned new knowledge quickly, what's more terrifying is that the correct rate of their answers has reached 100%. This is not something that ordinary people can do. Even though Kevin is very confident in his IQ, he also knows clearly that he is not at the same level as real geniuses like Mike and little Sheldon. It's good to know the gap. Teacher Sharon ignored Kevin's joke and said seriously, "Since you are not as talented as others, you have to work harder." These words seemed to be talking about Kevin, but in fact they were also sharing life experience with other members of the mathematical Olympiad team. After all, talent is something that others cannot envy. For ordinary people, hard work will be rewarded. On the other side, Mary, who returned home from the church, was looking worried. The reason for this situation was that she noticed that her period had been late for more than half a month. Except for pregnancy, this situation has never happened before. Mary, who was very uneasy, immediately went to find Grandma Connie. After listening to her situation, Grandma Connie asked, "Do you think it is possible that you have reached menopause? I'm very anxious now, so don't joke." Mary, who is only in her 30s this year, glared at her mother. Okay, seeing her daughter's serious look, Grandma Connie also put away her joking thoughts and asked seriously, "Have you told George about this? I didn't think about it before." Mary shook her head and said, "Okay, let me calculate." Grandma Connie, who was more experienced, calculated the date and asked, "Around Halloween, when you were intimate with George, did you take protection? It seems that there was one time when I didn't." Mary's face became complicated. Hearing her daughter's answer, Grandma Connie knew that the other party was probably pregnant. So, she suggested, "Let's go buy a pregnancy test first to see what the situation is." For this kind of thing, Grandma Connie couldn't help but take it seriously. "This is the only way." Mary responded with mixed feelings. Chapter 192 Children continued. Mary, who is over 30 years old, is definitely an older pregnant woman. If she is really pregnant, she couldn't save face, so she asked Grandma Connie to go to the department store counter and help buy the pregnancy test kit. Not long after, Mary, with a more complicated expression, came out of the bathroom at home. "How is it, Mary? Is it or not?" Grandma Connie asked carefully. Although Grandma Connie usually looks like she lives a carefree life, as a native Texan, she actually has a strong sense of family in her heart. Hearing the question, Mary, who was in a complicated mood, did not speak, but handed out the pregnancy test kit. After confirming that there were 2 red bars on the tool again and again, Grandma Connie excitedly stepped forward and hugged her daughter, saying, "That's great, Mary. When are you going to tell them this good news?" In the eyes of the grandmother, it is a happy thing to add another little life to the family. But compared to her happy appearance, Mary was still in a state of absent-mindedness. "What's wrong, Mary?" At this time, Grandma Connie also found that her daughter was in a bad mood. "Let's not tell Shirley and the others about this for now." Mary came to her senses and said, "I want to discuss this with George first. What do you think?" Grandma Connie had a bad feeling. Seeing her mother's increasingly serious expression, Mary thought for a while and said, "My work at the church has just stabilized. If I give birth to the child, I may be unemployed again. Besides, Shirley is still young and needs someone to take care of her. If there is another child at home, I'm afraid I can't take care of it." The current situation of the Cooper family is indeed not optimistic. If Mary loses her job at the church, the family can't meet the living expenses of a large family with George's salary alone. Moreover, taking care of 4 children at the same time is indeed a heavy burden for Mary. If it's a money problem, I can ask Mike for help. His stocks have been growing well recently. Grandma Connie saw that her daughter wanted to abort the child, and she advised implicitly, if you are worried that you can't take care of too many children at home, I'm still very strong now, and I should be able to help. Seeing her mother's concern, Mary was entangled again for a long time, and finally said, let's see, I still want to discuss it with George first. Okay. Seeing her daughter insisting, Grandma Connie couldn't say more. In the end, she could only remind, you can come to me at any time if you have any problems. We are a family. In the evening, Mike, who had finished a day of school life, found that the atmosphere at the Cooper family's dining table was a bit strange. Mary, who usually controls her children strictly, seemed to have not noticed that little George had spilled all the food on the table today. On the other hand, Grandma Connie, who cast a concerned look at her daughter from time to time, also looked very strange. After dinner, when they returned to their own home, Grandma Connie stopped Mike. Mike, there is something I want to ask you. Grandma Connie said. Please go ahead. Seeing the other party's embarrassed expression, Mike also became serious. During this period, he has received a lot of care from Grandma Connie, and he has long regarded her as a family member. If the other party has any difficulties, Mike does not mind helping within his ability. Well, I want to ask, is the stock market really that profitable? Grandma Connie asked a little unnaturally. As the saying goes, a family still has to settle accounts clearly. When it comes to money, even the cheerful Grandma Connie is a little embarrassed to mention it. It's really easy to make money in the current stock market. Mike said bluntly. Now is the era of the American economy taking off. As long as you grasp the wind, even a pig can fly. The same is true for the stock market. Moreover, Mike had previously thought of bringing Grandma Connie and the Cooper family to make money together. So, he continued, Grandma Connie, if you want to buy stocks, I can help you with ideas. I guarantee that you won't lose money. Mike, who has a long-term vision, has never thought about worrying about money. So in his opinion, as long as it can be solved with money, it is not a big problem. Seeing that Mike didn't treat her as an outsider, Grandma Connie smiled and said, it's not that I want to buy stocks, it's actually Mary. Then, she told the truth about Mary's pregnancy. Mike, who knew the truth, also figured out why Grandma Connie and Mary acted so strangely during dinner. So he also smiled and promised, if Mary wants to buy stocks, I can also help her with reference. The stock market is very popular, and Mike doesn't mind having more people make money with him. He is even ready to help his guardian Dennis in the small town of Minnesota. That's great. I'll tell Mary the news tomorrow. Grandma Connie seemed to have let go of a worry and smiled easily. She actually knew a little about Mike's making money in the stock market. At this time, in the room of George and his wife at the Cooper family, after thinking for a while, Mary came to her husband and confessed, I'm pregnant, a perfect version of the book in 1619. What? George, who was about to go to bed, didn't react for a while. I'm pregnant, maybe on Halloween. Mary said in detail. Wait, George was stunned when he heard such good news suddenly. Then, after digesting the information, he hugged his wife in surprise and said, that's great, little George and the others will be very happy to know this news. They will have a lovely brother or sister soon. Seeing her husband's incomparable happiness, Mary was silent for a long time, and then repeated what she said to Grandma Connie. However, in George's view, what his wife was worried about was not a big problem. Tomorrow I will talk to Dale and ask him to give me a raise. After thinking deeply, George said, you can continue to be a full-time wife at home in the future and leave the earning money to me. To be honest, George has some male chauvinism in his bones, which also makes him willing to shoulder the burden of the family's life. But hearing her husband's comforting words did not make Mary happy. She thought a lot that night, church work, child raising, family financial situation, etc. All of this made Mary very distressed. Finally, after sending her family away the next day, Mary did not go to church, but went to the hospital alone. A fetus of about 1 month old has not yet developed, so it is not difficult to abort it. That night, at the Cooper family's dining table, George, who still didn't know what his wife had done to hide it from him, was still immersed in joy. He had already mentioned the matter of salary increase to Dell, the owner of the sporting goods store, today, and also shared the fact that his wife was pregnant. In view of George's excellent work, Dell was also very considerate and increased his weekly salary by 100 million yuan. Everything seemed to be moving in a good direction. "Mike, you go back first." After dinner, Grandma Connie said, "I'll go to Mary to talk about stocks." Okay, Mike waved his hand and left the Cooper family first. On the other side, Grandma Connie, who stayed behind, walked towards the room of George and his wife. Coincidentally, a conversation was also going on in the room of George and his wife at this time. "I have something to tell you." To the couple spoke at the same time in tacit understanding, but one of them had a smile on his face, and the other looked nervous. Chapter 193 Stranger. "You go first." George, who was still in a happy state, showed his gentlemanly demeanor very well. "In order not to add burden to the family, I aborted the child." Mary spoke calmly, but her voice became smaller and smaller as she went on. As a Christian, she had just lamented the death of another believer's daughter, but who knew that now she had strangled a little life with her own hands? This behavior made her feel guilty. George, who heard clearly what his wife said, the happy expression on his face disappeared. He looked up and stared at his wife's familiar face with some unbelievable ears. At this time, Grandma Connie, who just came to the door and was about to knock on the door, also heard her daughter's words. The hand knocking on the door paused. After a long sigh, Grandma Connie turned and retreated with a complicated expression. However, she was a little dazed, and when she left, she accidentally touched the chair in the aisle, making a loud noise. "Missy, go back to bed." Now in the room, George, who didn't know how to react, shouted loudly after hearing the noise outside, as if he wanted to vent all the depression in his heart. Missy, who had played in the corridor in the middle of the night before, inexplicably took the blame for Grandma Connie. After a while, there was no sound in the corridor, and George calmed down a little. He looked at his wife and asked, "Why?" At this point, he just wanted to hear his wife's explanation. Obviously, the two had discussed it yesterday, and George also clearly expressed that he wanted this child. "No reason." Mary shook her head and said calmly, "Isn't it good like this?" In Mary's view, having a child is her personal matter. Now that she is considering aborting the child for the sake of the family, she has made more sacrifices. Thinking about this, she thinks that it makes more sense. The fact seems to be exactly like this. Without the burden, Mary has kept her job in the church, and George no longer has such great financial pressure. In addition, George's weekly salary has increased a little. Now the couple's weekly salary is 800 million yuan, which is much higher than when George was the highest paid in the football team. If calculated in this way, the life of the Cooper family will seem to be getting better and better. Just looking at his wife's calm appearance, George felt that she was so strange. Then, without the desire to communicate, he turned his back and lay on the boat. On the other side, Grandma Connie, who had sneaked away from the Cooper family, curled up on the sofa as soon as she returned to her home. She couldn't understand why her daughter made a decision privately without discussing such a big thing for the family. "What happened?" Grandma Connie, seeing that the other party looked like she was exhausted when she came back, Mike poured a glass of water and asked with concern, "Is it Mary who doesn't believe that stocks can make money? In fact, I can list my daily accounts for the past few months and give her a reference first. Stocks are now considered an emerging industry. It is normal for people who don't understand it to have a sense of distrust. It's not about stocks." Grandma Connie interrupted Mike and said, "It's Mary, she had an abortion." Grandma Connie, who was depressed, wanted to talk to someone, so she told him all the news she had heard before. How could this happen? Mike didn't expect Mary to be so decisive this time. "Forget it, don't mention it. Grandma is tired, I'm going to rest first." Thinking of this bad thing, Grandma Connie felt tired. As she said that, she got up and walked towards the room. After reaching the door, she turned around and reminded, "By the way, let this matter go." Don't mention it in the Cooper family in the future. Understood? Mike nodded in understanding. Such sensitive issues involving family members can easily cause family conflicts. But that night, George, who has always been open-minded and cheerful, still suffered from insomnia. Then, in the next few days, he was depressed and began to go out early and come back late, so he often missed the family dinner at home. When it was Friday, even Missy noticed that her father had been acting abnormally for the past few days. At dinner time, seeing that her father was absent again, she carefully asked, "Mom, does Dad not want us anymore?" Hearing the little girl's innocent words, several pairs of eyes looked at Mary at the same time. Children with simpler minds are generally more sensitive to changes in the atmosphere at home. Even little Sheldon, who has never paid much attention to this aspect, could see that something was wrong between his parents. Nothing. Mary forced a forced smile and comforted the children, saying, "Your father is just busy with work recently, and it will be fine after a while." Children are simple-minded, very sensitive and easy to deceive. Sure enough, the Cooper children all felt relieved after hearing their mother's explanation. Only little Sheldon looked a little confused. As far as he knew, the sporting goods store, where his father worked, had fixed working hours every day, and there was no possibility of overtime. Come to think of it, who would go to buy sporting goods late at night for no reason? However, out of trust in his mother, little Sheldon didn't think much about it. A perfect version of the book in 16:9. On the other side, after hearing Mary's explanation, Connie looked at her deeply, shook her head slightly, and said nothing more. Coincidentally, George came back with a smell of alcohol as soon as the dinner at Cooper's house was over. "Go back to your room and rest quickly." Mary hurriedly sent the children away, and then pulled her husband aside and asked, "What's wrong with you?" George, who was already 8 points drunk, said carelessly, "Del gave me such a big salary increase. I went to drink with him. Is there a problem?" He was very unhappy about his wife's previous private decision. Moreover, George had thought seriously that night when he couldn't sleep. He thought that the reason why his wife made that decision was probably because he didn't make enough money. And realizing that the responsibility might be on him, George felt very aggrieved and cowardly. Therefore, he was in a depressed mood and could only go out to drink to relieve his sorrow. Of course, a large part of the reason was that he didn't want to come back and face his wife who had become a stranger. Even if Del gave you a raise, you shouldn't drink so much with him. Mary knew the reason why her husband became like this. After scolding him, she didn't mention the alcohol anymore, but changed the subject and said, "The church is planning a Christmas event, and I will be very busy this weekend. So, Missy and the others will be in your care for the next 2 days." Because the church's Halloween event was very successful last time, Pastor Jeff also gave Mary the Christmas event to plan. "Go ask Connie if she has time to take care of Missy and the others." George shook his dizzy head and said, "I have to work overtime at the store on the weekends, and I have to be worthy of the salary increase Del gave me." "Why? Just give you a weekly salary of 100 yuan, and you have to work overtime on the weekend," Mary said indignantly. George's previous weekly salary was 350 yuan for 5 days of work, and now it has increased to 450 yuan for 7 days of work. According to the hourly wage, this is no different from not having a salary increase. So, Mary's angle of criticism was very right. Just when she wanted to argue with her husband again, she found that he was snoring. Weekend, Regina's house. After another week of practice, the girls can already cooperate well and sing the new song. It's just that in terms of instrument performance, except for Karen, who plays the drums, the level of the other 3 girls' instruments is not up to standard. Especially Queen Bee Regina. After such a long time, she has not even started guitar level. We will talk about instrument performance later. Let's go to the recording studio to record the demo first. Mike, who understood the situation of the girls, gave the next instructions. There are special musicians in the recording studio to produce background music. After the master tape comes out, the worst that can happen is to let the girls practice fake playing with the background music. Anyway, the school's Christmas party is about the atmosphere, and the professional requirements are not that high. Chapter 194 Christmas Party. with the help of Regina's mother, Ash. The accompaniment of We Wish You a Merry Christmas was produced by a professional musician. On Saturday afternoon, Mike accompanied the girls of the Devil Body group to the recording studio to record the song. With the help of the tuner, the girls' new song was basically completed in the evening. A group of people in Regina's family listened to the Christmas song on the record player, and they all showed a satisfied look. This song is really good. It can be released as a Christmas single. Ash, who has a broader vision, gave a fair evaluation after listening to the new song. To be honest, she was a little surprised by Mike's musical talent. Ash had never thought that the creative process that seemed like a playful thing would really allow Mike and others to produce such a high quality Christmas song. Really? Mom Regina asked in surprise. Is this song really up to the level of releasing a single? Although Queen Bee also thought that this new song sung by herself was very nice, she did not have a clear understanding of how good it was. But how could she, who was at the age of fantasy, resist the temptation of being famous? Not to mention that Regina was a person who loved to show off. On the other side, the other three girls of the Devil Body group also focused their attention on the conversation between Queen Bee and her mother. Obviously, they also could not resist the temptation of being famous. Of course it can be released. Aizu said affirmatively, if you are willing, I can help you promote this song around Christmas. Although Aizu usually looks like she has nothing to do, it is not difficult to promote a new song with her husband's network of connections. I do hearing that there is a chance to release this new song. Regina immediately agreed happily. Then, she turned to look at the other three members of the Devil Body group and asked, what do you think of my mother's suggestion? The three girls naturally had no objection to their works being appreciated by more people. Seeing that everyone in the Devil Body group had reached a consensus, Regina looked at Mike again and asked, Mike, do you have any ideas? Strictly speaking, Mike, who wrote the lyrics and composed the music, had the most say in the handling of this song. Of course I have no objection. Mike said immediately. Very good, leave the release to me. Now, you can discuss the issue of income sharing. Aizu showed her reliable side. Then, she said happily, you guys are busy first, I will prepare dinner for you, and we will celebrate in a while. After that, Aizu hurriedly left the room to prepare dinner for the celebration. In the music room, the girls who had not been corrupted by money did not care much about the issue of song income. In the end, it was Mike who proposed that the income from this song be divided equally among the 5 people. As for the future, if the song becomes popular and has commercial income, then we will discuss it later. The girls who had no concept of money immediately agreed to Mike's proposal. It was Sunday. Aizu, who was full of energy to promote the new song, took the Devil Figure group and Mike to shoot a set of posters for the song. Normally, Mike, the creator, does not need to shoot promotional posters. But who can blame him for being handsome? Aizu obviously would not miss such a good publicity gimmick. After a morning, the posters for promotion were successfully shot. So far, the work of promoting the new song has officially begun. Of course, Mike and his friends don't need to worry about the rest of the song promotion work. All operations are handed over to the enthusiastic Aizu. The importance of Christmas in the West is no less than that of the Spring Festival in the East. As Christmas approaches, the festive atmosphere in the small town of Telford is becoming more and more intense. Various small colored lights are hung on the streets, and Christmas trees, Santa Claus, elk and other decorations are all displayed at the entrance of the shopping mall. As Christmas approaches, the school also gives students enough free time. The collective exercise time in the afternoon was cancelled, and instead, each small team gathered together to rehearse for the performance of the Christmas party. On Thursday afternoon, in a small independent classroom, several girls from the Devil Body group were playing their instruments with all their efforts, accompanied by the background music of the new song. Regina, you have been training for so long. Why are your guitar movements and gestures still so unfamiliar? After practicing once, Mike pointed out the mistakes of Queen Bee individually. In view of the girls' musical literacy, Mike has lowered his requirements to the lowest. The girls only need to play along with the music and pretend to play, but the requirements are so low, but Regina still can't meet the standards. I have practiced seriously. Maybe the guitar is not suitable for me, Regina said, a little aggrieved. In order to make a splash, she has indeed practiced very seriously during this period. And Mike has also seen her efforts during this period. But the result of this effort is not ideal. It seems that Regina really has no talent for playing. At this point, there is no point in blaming the other party. Mike thought for a while and said, I didn't think it through before. How about this, Regina? You change your instrument to handballs. When you perform at the party tomorrow, you can be the lead singer and use the handballs as decoration. As the lead singer of a band, sometimes it can be very easy, as long as there is a microphone. Check out the correct version in 16,191 book 1 bar. Handballs? This is easy. Regina put down the guitar, took a string of beach-style handballs from the side, and shook them happily twice. During this period, she has not been able to keep up with the progress of other team members, and in fact, the queen bee is also under a lot of pressure. Now it's good. She doesn't have to play the guitar, and she can occupy the most eye-catching C position as the lead singer. This unique treatment makes the queen bee very satisfied. Mike, will you go on stage with us tomorrow? Gretchen, who has a calm temperament, asked with concern. The girl, who usually doesn't talk much, realized that the live performance of the group needs someone who can play the role of the finale. This role should have been played by Karen, who plays the drums. Although Karen's musical sense is a little better than other girls in the team, it is obvious that she is still far behind in controlling the rhythm of the performance and playing the role of the finale. Tomorrow I will be on stage with you as a keyboard player. Mike, who was mentally prepared, said. Great. Hearing Mike's promise, the girls cheered. The girls have a clear understanding of Mike's musical literacy. With his participation, the girls of the Devil Body group will be more confident for tomorrow's Christmas performance. Okay, while there is still time, let's rehearse a few more times together. Mike sat in front of the electronic keyboard and reminded the happy girls. Tomorrow is Christmas, and the time given to everyone to really rehearse is actually not that sufficient. On this side, with Mike's electronic keyboard joining, the girls who don't have to worry about the problem of being out of tune really rehearsed a lot more smoothly. By the time school was over, the joint performance of several people was already very similar. It was no problem to participate in the school's Christmas performance. Before disbanding, Mike gathered the girls together, stretched out his hand and encouraged them. I wish our performance tomorrow will be a great success. The girls high-fived each other and cheered loudly. By the way, our single will be officially released tomorrow. My mother has prepared a big meal at home. Do you want to celebrate together? After the commotion, Regina invited them. It must be said that Regina's family has strong connections. Through the family's network of connections, Aizu really grabbed the opportunity to release the single on Christmas Day. Forget it. Tomorrow is Christmas, and there are still many things to prepare at home. Let's talk about the celebration later. Mike spoke first. Normally, this single of the Devil Body group is likely to not make any waves in the huge music market. Therefore, there is nothing to celebrate for something that is not yet certain. What's more, everyone has already celebrated once on the day the song was completed. Chapter 195 Christmas. Hearing Mike's refusal, the other 3 girls in the Devil Body group also said that they would go home to help their parents and prepare for Christmas at home. Just like buying New Year's goods before the Spring Festival, you also need to make some special desserts before Christmas, such as Christmas tree-shaped cakes, elk cookies, Santa Claus cookies, etc. On Christmas Day, these desserts can be mixed with candies and shared with people around. And families with conditions can also decorate a shiny Christmas tree that belongs to their own home. Okay, let's celebrate after the school Christmas party tomorrow. Seeing that everyone rejected her invitation to the party, Regina didn't seem disappointed. After saying that, she threw a coquettish eye to Mike and said ambiguously, Mike, there will be a surprise waiting for you at tomorrow's private celebration. For her daughter's Christmas activities, Aizu, who is not short of money, specially prepared many sets of beautiful costumes for her, including Christmas short skirts, reindeer costumes, sweetheart candy costumes, etc. And there are several sets of these beautiful costumes that are not suitable for appearing in front of people, so they can only be cheap for Mike. Of course, when Aizu was helping her daughter buy clothes, she did not forget the other girls in the devil body group. It can be said that those beautiful clothes belong to all the girls in the devil body group. On the side, the 3 members of the devil body group, who also heard the implicit meaning in Regina's words, all blushed a little. Although they had practiced with Mike before, they still felt very excited and a little shy to play role-playing with each other on Christmas Day. Seeing the girls' interesting reactions, Mike also became interested. Then, he smiled and said, "I look forward to your performance tomorrow night." So, several people agreed to hold a private Christmas party at Regina's house after the school Christmas party tomorrow. Then, Regina drove Mike back home. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Grandma Connie baking cookies. "Mike, come and try Grandma's special cookies." Grandma Connie greeted with a sense of accomplishment. I don't know where she got the character shape template from, and made many human-shaped cookies. In the cookie box, Mike saw a cookie modeled after himself. "It tastes good." Mike gave a high evaluation after tasting the cookie. "As long as you like it, I will share these cookies with the Cooper family later. Shelly and Missy will definitely like it," Grandma Connie said with a smile. In addition to the image of Mike, these cookies also have cartoon image templates of little Sheldon, little George and Missy. Later, during the dinner party at the Cooper family, Grandma Connie's special cookies were indeed welcomed by the Cooper children. When the dinner was about to end, Mary invited, "Tomorrow night, there will be a Christmas gospel prayer event in the church. Does anyone want to participate?" Gospel means news that is beneficial to everyone. That is to say, tomorrow's church Christmas event will be for believers and Pastor Jeff to share the good things that have happened this year. The form should be more like a symposium. It can be seen that without the help of Mr. Andy, who is very artistic, Mary's ability to plan activities has obviously declined. "Will there be a nun-dance performance?" little George asked with a strange train of thought. No, Mary glared at the other person fiercely. Strictly speaking, in the church of the small town of Telford, Mary is considered a nun in terms of position. There is no possibility of watching her dance. It seems that she feels that everyone has no interest in the church's Christmas activities. Mary continued to reveal, "Tomorrow, Pastor Jeff will lead everyone to sing gospel songs together, to pray for the believers. In the eyes of believers, it is a sacred and solemn thing for the pastor to sing and bless everyone. And being able to participate in such a ceremony can be regarded as a great achievement." However, the news revealed by Mary still failed to arouse everyone's interest. After all, except for her, no one in this family is a Christian, so naturally they are not interested in the blessing event. Little George was the first to say, "I'll go to the school's Christmas party tomorrow. At least there will be many interesting performances there." Then Grandma Connie and Missy also said that they would go to listen to Mike's new Christmas song tomorrow night. Yes, it is no secret at home that Mike wrote a new song for the Devil Body group. Seeing that no one was interested in the church Christmas event she had planned, Mary could only look at her youngest son. "I have an appointment with Dan tomorrow to go to the school Christmas party together," little Sheldon said immediately. "Well, it seems that I can only go to receive blessings alone tomorrow." Mary curled her lips and said in a low voice. It can be seen that she looked a little disappointed because she did not get the support of her family. Later, after dinner, Mike returned to Grandma Connie's house. After observing the empty living room here, he suggested, "Grandma Connie, let's decorate a Christmas tree in the living room tomorrow. What do you think?" "That kind of thing is useless except for decoration, and it's very expensive." Grandma Connie analyzed it from a practical point of view. It costs about 100 million yuan to decorate a small Christmas tree. If you buy a large Christmas tree directly from the mall, it will probably cost more than 1,000 yuan. A perfect version in the 16:9 book bar. Grandma Connie and the Cooper family, who have been in a tight financial situation for many years, are obviously not very interested in such uneconomical expenses. "Leave the decoration to me. I just happened to make a little money recently." Mike thought for a while and said, "The atmosphere is important for the holidays. Moreover, the stock market has risen sharply again during the end of the year. For Mike, spending a few hundred yuan is not a big deal." Hearing what Mike said, Grandma Connie smiled and said, "In this case, you can go and call the Cooper family to decorate the Christmas tree together tomorrow. Little George and Missy will probably like it. I understand. Mike made an okay gesture, which was considered to be a decision on the Christmas tree. The time came to the next morning. Before the Christmas party, Christmas Eve, the school was basically on holiday, just waiting for the holiday party in the evening. Mike, who had a lot of free time during the day, told the Cooper family about decorating the Christmas tree at Grandma Connor's house. Just like visiting the elders during the Chinese New Year, the Cooper family's Christmas party dinner will actually be held at Grandma Connor's house. After hearing that Mike was going to decorate the Christmas tree at home, George immediately expressed his interest and said that he could go to the surrounding woods to dig a pine tree. The choice of Christmas pine trees is generally between 2 meters and 5 meters. After some discussion, George took little George to the surrounding woods to dig a pine tree about 2.5 meters tall. Mike, on the other hand, took Missy and little Sheldon to the big mall in town to buy colored lights, ribbons, sequins, small stars, etc. materials for decorating the Christmas tree. Missy, if Santa Claus can fulfill one of your wishes, what do you want? In the mall, after purchasing almost all the decorations, Mike looked at the little girl next to him and asked, I want Santa Claus to give me another Barbie doll so that she can accompany my Barbie princess. Missy raised her little face and blinked her big eyes and said, there is no Santa Claus at all. Little Sheldon, who was holding a bunch of decoration materials and walking very inconveniently, retorted in a depressing way, oh, don't be so absolute. Mike laughed and asked, if there is a Santa Claus, what do you want, Sheldon? I want a physical copy of Dr. Hawking's A Brief History of Time. Little Sheldon fantasized for a while, then regained his senses and said, but even if there is a Santa Claus, he can't stuff such a thick book into my socks. In that case, shouldn't you prepare a pair of high quality socks first? After knowing the wishes of the two little guys, Mike teased little Sheldon. You're right, I still need a pair of socks. Little Sheldon thought carefully about Mike's words, turned around and walked towards the socks place in the mall with difficulty. Chapter 196 Christmas Party, continued. Before leaving the mall, Mike sent Missy and the other two away for a while, and went to the counter to buy the Christmas gifts they wanted, and packed them in beautiful gift boxes. Then, he packed all the small gifts that he had picked out in advance to give to Grandma Connie and others. After shopping, when Mike and the other two returned home, they just saw George driving a pickup truck and pulling back a medium-sized Christmas tree. Mike, come and help George, who was preparing to trim the extra branches of the pine tree, greeted with a smile. Okay, Mike replied, handed the things in his hand to Grandma Connie, who was watching the fun, and then joined the ranks of making Christmas trees. More than an hour later, when Mike stepped on a stool and decorated a giant golden star on the top of the Christmas tree, a Christmas tree full of sequins, candles and small colored lights was officially made in the living room of Grandma Connie's house. Great, I'll turn on the switch and see the effects. Seeing that everything was ready, Missy cheered and went to connect the power supply. Then, along with the twinkling lights, the Santa Claus doll used as the decoration on the Christmas tree also sang a clear and cheerful Christmas song, Jingle Bells. It's so beautiful, Grandma Connie exclaimed in front of the shining Christmas tree. A beautiful Christmas tree is the best gift for Christmas. Seeing that the family liked it, George and his son, who pulled the Christmas tree back by hand, looked at each other and smiled with a sense of accomplishment. Okay, let's leave it lit like this. Grandma Connie smiled and said that she didn't care about the electricity bill. Then, she greeted everyone to taste the barbecue dinner she made by herself. The Christmas party held by the school actually started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and ended at 8 o'clock in the evening. Just enough time for Christmas Eve. At Grandma Connor's house, after everyone had a simple lunch, except for Mary, who was going to church, the rest of the family went to Melford High School in the car, driven by Grandma Connie and George. Around 2 o'clock, when Mike and others arrived at the school, there were many students and their parents sitting in the auditorium. Mike waited for Grandma Connie and others to find seats in the front row before saying goodbye. It's almost time, I'll go backstage to prepare. Go ahead, we'll be waiting for your wonderful performance in a while. Grandma Connie responded with a smile. After saying goodbye to the Cooper family, Mike came to the backstage lounge and saw the young and beautiful Katie and the other four at a glance. Several girls were wearing Christmas miniskirt suits and sitting in a circle discussing the performance that was about to begin. Judging from the warm atmosphere, they were not nervous about the next performance. But think about it, the Devil Body group has always been very popular in school, and today's performance can only be regarded as a small scene for them. What's more, there is a queen bee who loves to show off. With her adjusting the atmosphere, the girls will be even less nervous. Seeing Mike coming, Regina happily shared, "Mike, you know what? Our single has sold 3,000 copies. We are going to be famous taking advantage of the arrival of Christmas." The single promoted by AIs who also successfully flowed into the song market. In just one morning, a single of a previously unknown group can sell more than 3,000 copies, which is indeed a very good result. Really? Congratulations on your single, future big stars. Seeing the girls' happy faces, Mike immediately sent his blessings. "It's sus," Regina said with a smile. "We are a team, aren't we? Queen Bee is not stupid. She knows that Mike played a decisive role in the production of this song." Hearing what Queen Bee said, Mike smiled and did not refuse. Then, he asked, "How are your performances going?" "Don't worry, we rehearsed together this morning, and we won't hold you back in the performance later," Regina said, and encouraged everyone. "We will definitely make a splash this time." At 2:40 before the performance, Regina pulled Mike into a small room and took out the men's performance clothes prepared by AI Zoo. This is a bright red Santa Claus costume, which matches Regina's costumes very well. And it can be seen that this suit has been carefully designed and tailored. Unlike the Santa Claus costume with a big belly, the Santa Claus costume on Mike is very comfortable and slim. Dressed in bright red, he naturally exudes an irresistible charm. Across from him, Regina, who was helping Mike with his costume, gradually became hot-eyed. "Wait, it's not the right time yet." Mike stopped the other person from rushing over and said calmly, "Wait until the show is over. You will have a chance to taste Santa Claus's power." After Mike's reminder, Regina also realized that the show was about to start, and now was not a good time. She licked her lips, put away her murderous expression, and said with a smile, "I will taste your candy later." Obviously, the feeling of anticipation before peeling the candy was enough to make people happy. Later, when the two returned to the backstage, the announcement sounded on the stage in front. The sissy Damien in a white suit was the host of today's party. The correct version is on the 16-9 bookbar. Thank you all for coming to the Melford School Christmas party on this special day. At this moment, Damien, with his hair combed like an adult, controlled the stage very well. After a skilled opening speech, he continued, "Please enjoy the first program, a song performance brought by me." Some teachers who knew the program list beside the stage were surprised when they heard it. It was obvious that Damien took advantage of his position to add a performance for himself. However, the school's Christmas party is all about joy, and there are no such strict requirements on professionalism. At this point, the teachers who knew some of the inside story shook their heads helplessly and did not stop Damien's nonsense. In the center of the stage, Damien held the microphone, tilted his head at a 45-degree angle, and made an exaggerated intoxicated look, and then began his song performance. However, his voice was feminine, and he sang a tenor song when he opened his mouth. The scene was very much like a woman holding her throat to sing "My Son." I can't say the singing was bad, I can only say this alternative performance was so unique. Finally, after Damien sang half of a tenor song, a boy in the front row could no longer bear this torture, took off his shoes, and threw them at Damien's face. "Get out of here," the boy shouted in dissatisfaction. In the middle of the first row, Grandma Connie, who had also been tortured by the song for a while, saw the boy's actions next to her, and her eyes lit up, as if she had found a new way to play at the party. Just looking at the hard high heels on her feet, Grandma Connie gave up the idea of throwing them away. If she really threw the pointed high heels away, they might turn into weapons. Then, Grandma Connie smiled and turned her head to look at little George, who was wearing sneakers. After sensing what Grandma was thinking, little George quickly shook his head and shrank back, hiding his feet under the chair. He was not thick-skinned enough, and he didn't want to climb onto the stage to pick up his shoes in front of everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Performance. Seeing George's resistance, Connie shook her head in disappointment and joined the audience in the booing. Yes, Damien suffered a strong backlash because of his willful behavior. Starting from the time when the daring boy threw out his shoes, the audience, whose ears were also tortured, immediately protested against Damien's song performance. Amidst the protests that were getting louder and louder, Damien's song performance naturally could not go on. After putting down the microphone, picking up the shoes on the stage, and throwing them back at the boy, Damien raised the microphone again and announced with a little emotion, "Next, please enjoy the rap performance brought to you by the Cool Boys group." Seeing Damien walking to the backstage in embarrassment, the audience who won the protest war immediately cheered loudly. In this case, although Damien's impromptu song performance was unsuccessful, he unexpectedly hit the mark and played a good warm-up role. Janice, a punk girl at the backstage entrance, saw her friend being kicked out and came forward to say with concern, as an announcer, "Why did you do this? You may become the laughing stock of the school because of this." Although the punk girl's words were not pleasant to hear, her concern was evident. "Damn it, I sang so well, but no one appreciated it," Damien said indignantly, but he didn't care much about being a laughing stock. Anyway, no matter how bad it sounds, it can't be worse than his nickname. Seeing that her friend was not hit by the failed performance, Janice, the punk girl, also relaxed. Then, when she saw the faint shoe prints on her friend's face, she held back her laughter and teased, "If you wipe off the shoe prints on your face, your words will be more convincing." In response to the punk girl's joke, the sissy Damien snorted in dissatisfaction, then took out a small mirror from his body and began to wipe the marks on his face. In fact, Damien was quite depressed because his carefully arranged impromptu song performance failed to get the audience's approval. He just didn't show his depressed mood in order to avoid looking embarrassed. On the other side, the Cool Boys band standing beside the entrance waited until the noise outside was much quieter before preparing to go on stage. Although Damien had warmed up the venue before, it was obviously a bit too warm. In the case of the audience constantly booing, it was obviously not wise to force the performance. The Cool Boys band was very smart to wait until the audience calmed down before going on stage. "Hey, buddy, you're blocking our way," Kevin, who was dressed in hip-hop style, said to Janice, a punk girl who was blocking the entrance. "Are you blind?" Janice, who had just finished teasing her friend, turned around with an ugly face and stared at Kevin, who said the wrong thing. At the same time, she deliberately straightened her legs to make herself look more feminine. Although the punk girl has always been dressed in a neutral way, she is still a little princess deep down. Being mistaken for a man for no reason naturally made her very unhappy. Moreover, on such an important day as Christmas, the punk girl also deliberately let down her dreadlocks and put on her most beautiful clothes. All signs indicate that she actually wants to be a lady. Here, Kevin looked at the punk girl several times and said seriously, "Sorry, this lady who looks like a man, can you make way?" Seeing that the punk girl was in a red temperature state, Kevin did not dare to tease her anymore. He took two members of the mathematical Olympiad team and quietly squeezed past the punk girl. "Don't let me see you again in school." Looking at the back of the Cool Boys group heading to the stage, the punk girl Janice raised her fist and waved it twice. On the side, Damien, who was a little depressed before, finally couldn't help laughing after watching such a good show, and repeated, "A woman who looks like a man." While speaking, he also tried to hold back his smile and imitated Kevin's previous behavior, looking at the punk girl several times. It turns out that smiles don't disappear, they just move from one person's face to another. On the stage, Kevin from the Cool Boys group pointed his finger to the sky and made a cool pose, then began his rap performance. However, as the captain of the mathematical Olympiad team, he has no talent in rap. Moreover, the rap he wrote not only didn't rhyme, but also contained self-praising words such as "I'm cool" and "I'm charming." "That's enough, Kevin. That's enough." The boy who threw the shoe before took advantage of Kevin's rap and reminded loudly, Obviously, this boy knew Kevin, otherwise he would definitely not be able to resist throwing the shoe again in such a shitty rap performance. Kevin also noticed that the audience below didn't seem to appreciate his wonderful rap. So, he stopped while he was ahead, waved handsomely to the audience, and returned to the backstage with 2 team members. Please enjoy the Christmas song performance brought to us by the Devil Body Group and Mike. After the rap performance, Damien came to the stage and continued to announce, by the way, it is worth mentioning that this Christmas song is a new song written by Mike. The single is being released on the market. Without any strange operations, Damien can be said to be a very qualified announcer. For example, now, he successfully aroused the audience's expectations with a few simple words. The correct version is in the 16-9 book and bar. Mike and the girls in the Devil Body Group are already the celebrities of the school. Now with the gimmick of the new song release, they are destined to be the biggest highlight of tonight's performance. Katie, come on Damien, who came back after announcing the show, met Katie and others who were preparing to go on stage at the entrance. Although Katie successfully integrated into the Devil Body Group, she still kept close contact with her 2 good friends, Damien and Janice. Katie smiled and nodded, saying hello to her first good friend. Okay, it's our turn. Regina, the queen bee on the side, couldn't wait to start her performance. She had prepared for so long before, just to make a splash at this moment. Let's go. Mike also called everyone to go on stage. Seeing the confident appearance of Mike and Regina, the remaining 3 girls in the Devil Body Group suddenly felt full of strength. Everything is ready amid the cheers of the audience. Several figures holding musical instruments appeared under the spotlight of the stage. Against the light, Mike saw the Cooper family waving their arms vigorously in the first row, and Esha holding a camera in the aisle. Of course, there was also Katie's mother in the middle of the audience who was about to cry with emotion when she saw her daughter on stage, and Katie's father was comforting his wife on the side. At the same time, seeing Mike and the Devil Body Group on stage, many students of Melford School stood up excitedly and showed their enthusiasm. It can be seen that the combination of handsome men and beautiful women such as Mike and others is very popular with everyone. Then, as the music sounded, the scene slowly quieted down. Then, accompanied by the electronic keyboard, the girls began to sing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." On such a special day, the girls' beautiful singing, coupled with the appropriate songs, quickly immersed the audience. Compared with the previous 2 performances, which were like farce, Regina and others' performances were obviously more satisfying. Chapter 198 Becoming Famous. The duration of a song is not long. After the new song performance, when Regina and the others greeted the audience and prepared to leave the stage, the audience immediately gave warm cheers, and in these cheers, there were also voices of "One More Song." Then, the voices of "One More Song" became louder and more uniform. It can be seen that the audience liked the performances of the Devil Body Group and Mike and others very much. After a while, Damien, who was staying backstage, also came to the edge of the stage with a microphone. He was not afraid of trouble, so he held the microphone aside and called on the audience to cheer loudly. One more song. At this point, the atmosphere of the school Christmas party stage was pushed to the peak. Seeing that she was so popular, Queen Bee showed a happy expression. The status of the other 3 girls on the stage was similar to that of Queen Bee. Obviously, the girls are at an age with strong vanity, and they cannot be calm about the enthusiastic pursuit of the audience. But after the fun, the girls were also in a dilemma about the audience's request for one more song. What should we do? How about we have another dance performance? Regina whispered to the team members around her. Fashionable hot mom Ashley privately choreographed a lot of novel dances for her daughter and her Devil Body Group, such as thigh dance, waist twisting dance, pig dance, etc. Those dances are used to cope with the next performance, so there is no big problem. The girls, who soon came up with an idea, looked at Mike standing aside. You know, although Mike has seen the girls dance these dances, he has never learned them. Now it is obviously a bit difficult for him to dance those strange dances with the girls. Mike, do you have any good suggestions? Regina asked for advice. Obviously, she also realized Mike's difficulties. Why not sing another song of Jingle Bells and I Will Accompany You? Mike immediately suggested. This well-known Christmas song is very suitable for today's stage. The girls who had just released a new song all lit up when they heard Mike's suggestion. Obviously, the suggestion of singing another Christmas song was very consistent with the singer identity of the girls in the Devil Body group. So, the program of singing Jingle Bells was immediately decided. Then, as the familiar beat of the electronic keyboard sounded, the audience realized that a new performance had begun. The noise gradually calmed down. Then, the girls' crisp singing sounded along with the music of the electronic keyboard. However, although the sound of the electronic keyboard can imitate many instruments, only Mike helped to compose the song, which made the girls' impromptu song performance seem a bit monotonous. Teacher Sharon next to the stage obviously realized this. So she quietly sat in front of the piano next to the stage. With the addition of the piano music, the girls' song performance instantly had a sense of hierarchy. Then, many audiences who were moved by the music also joined the chorus. The song Jingle Bells is a well-known Christmas song that everyone is familiar with. So, in the second half of the song, a chorus of people appeared in the auditorium. Thank you everyone. After the whole song was sung, the girls of the Devil Body group thanked the audience again and left the stage happily. Performing on such a stage is a kind of enjoyment for the girls, but they don't have much in stock. If the audience asks for one more song, it will be difficult to deal with. After all, the song performance is a gem before. If the girls perform a strange dance again, it will definitely destroy their beautiful image in the hearts of the audience. Therefore, the Devil Body group left the stage immediately after singing the second song, which can be regarded as stopping while they are ahead. Mike nodded to Teacher Sharon who had just helped him and others perform a song next to the stage, and then followed the Devil Body group off the stage. Piano experience plus 166, cooking experience plus 88, zoology research experience plus 66, photography experience plus 99. Mike returned to the backstage with many more experience groups in his hands. These light balls were contributed by Teacher Sharon, Grandma Connie, Katie's parents, AI Zoo and others. Obviously, being able to contribute light balls proves that these people are very satisfied with the performance just now. Mike, we succeeded. Regina, who came to the backstage, cheered and hugged Mike tightly. Then, the other three girls in the Devil Figure group also came forward to hug Mike one by one. As I said, the reason why this performance was so successful was that Mike, who did a lot of work on and off the stage, was definitely the biggest contributor. Hey, Mike, I just saw it all. Your performance was very successful. Congratulations. Kevin, who had performed rap before, did not leave the backstage. After seeing Mike and others finish their performance, he came over to send his blessings. Thank you. Mike nodded to Kevin, who was dressed in hip hop, and then wanted to make a commercial compliment. Your rap is also very unique. However, for the poor rap performance, he really couldn't find any better compliments for a while. I know you are different from those ordinary people. Kevin didn't find that Mike was insincere. After receiving the compliment, he seemed to have found a soulmate and said happily, brother, you still understand me. In the 16:9 book forum, there is no wrong version. As he said that, he wanted to have a long and cordial talk with Mike. However, after seeing the unfriendly eyes of the four girls with devilish figures beside him, he said goodbye awkwardly. Mike, I'm sorry to bother you. Let's talk again next time, when we are free. After Kevin, the light bulb, left, Regina immediately suggested that everyone go to her house to start the second private party of the day. It was not yet 4 o'clock, and there was still enough time for several people to celebrate before the arrival of Christmas Eve at midnight. Next, under the beautiful Christmas tree of Regina's house, Mike watched the girls' restricted level dress-up dance performance. On this special day, Christmas short skirts, reindeer suits and sweetheart candy suits all have unique charms. Not long after, Mike, who was aroused, also joined the dance team. Then, as the dance progressed, the stage for several people also moved from the living room to the bedroom. It was past 10 in the evening. Mike, who had experienced various styles of dance, walked out of the room with the girls. Christmas Eve, the eve of Christmas. If nothing unexpected happens, everyone will spend it with their families. This unwritten ritual is equivalent to staying up all night. Mike, on his side, will naturally go back to stay up all night with Grandma Connie and the Cooper family. In the living room of Regina's house, Aizu had already returned. At this time, she was watching the party scenes she had filmed before on the projection TV at home. Seeing several people walk out of the room, she stared at Mike and said meaningfully, "Do you need a special cocktail to replenish your body?" Obviously, this open-minded hot mom must have heard the huge noise in her daughter's room before. No, Mike refused. I should go home. Even if he was thick-skinned enough, he still felt a little embarrassed in this situation. Before Aizu could say anything more bold, Mike said goodbye to her first and left the living room. "I'll see you off." Seeing Mike leave, Regina followed the other 3 girls out. At the gate of the villa, after watching the 3 girls drive away, Mike got into Regina's red sports car. On the way, Mike first called the Dennis family in Minnesota to send holiday greetings. Then, he, who had been riding in the girls' car for some time, began to think about what kind of car he should buy next year. For a man, it is very important to have a car for transportation. And it just so happens that after tomorrow spring, Mike will be old enough to drive. And it just so happens that the spare money he has is enough for him to buy a car that he likes. Chapter 199 Day. Wow. When Mike was thinking about what car to buy next year, Regina, who was driving beside him, pulled over and cheered in surprise. It's snowing, as if welcoming the arrival of Christmas Eve. The sky was filled with sparkling snowflakes. After a while, the scattered snowflakes turned into heavy snow. The large flakes of snow, accompanied by the flashing colored lights on both sides of the road, gave the small town of Telford a hazy beauty. It's snowing. It's snowing. As her relationship with Mike gradually deepened, Regina's personality also showed a lively side. At this time, she ran out of the car like a child, opening her arms to welcome the flying snowflakes, and at the same time, she gave a burst of surprised cheers. In the residential area not far away, there were also excited children rushing out of the house from time to time to cheer and make noise in the snow. Of course, along with the children's cheers, there were also concerned reprimands from their parents. "You know, the temperature outside is not high now. If you don't keep warm, you will get sick if you are not careful." Mike also called the excited Regina back to the car. However, in just a short while, the girl's nose and back of her hands were already frozen red. After that, Regina, who had warmed up her hands, took advantage of the snow not being too thick to drive Mike back to the door of Connor's grandmother's house. Merry Christmas. When Mike was about to get off the car, Regina gave him her Christmas wishes in advance. Seeing the girl's touching appearance, Mike also gave her a sweet farewell kiss. After getting off the car, Mike waved and reminded the girl, "Be careful on the way back." Got it? Regina stuck her head out of the car window and said with a smile, "By the way, Mike, don't forget to come and play with me when you have time." Starting from tomorrow, the school gave students 2 weeks of vacation, including the weekend. The Christmas vacation is a total of 16 days. Such a long vacation is enough for those who like to travel to go out and play. "I will come to see you when I have time." Facing the girl's expectant eyes, Mike gave an answer. After getting the promise she wanted, the girl drove away with satisfaction. At the door of Grandma Connor's house, Mike watched the sports car go away before entering the house. "Mike, you're back with Mrs. Surprised voice." The little girl came to the door happily and helped Mike pat the snowflakes on his body. Under the Christmas tree in the living room, there were many drinks and snacks, and 2 decks of Texas Hold'em were scattered in the middle. Obviously, Grandma Connie and the Cooper family were playing a family game before. "Mike, do you want to come and try?" Grandma Connie, who was cutting the cards, invited. Texas Hold'em was originally a game that tested luck, but it turned into an intelligence competition by little Sheldon, who understood the rules. Use snacks as chips. Adults who lose all their chips need to drink alcohol, while children drink juice. After a while, Mike, who also understood the way everyone played, joined the game. Then, this casual game soon became an intelligence competition between him and little Sheldon. 2 geniuses with super brain power and memory dimensionality reduction attack on other people playing the game together. "I really should take you two to the casino." After losing all her chips again, Grandma Connie said sourly, after drinking a glass of beer. Not to mention, she, who loves gambling, is really thinking about how to take Mike and his friends to the casino to win big. Mom Mary, who knows her mother's character, saw the other's thoughtful expression, and her tone was a little cautious. She didn't want her little son to be infected with those bad habits because of Grandma Connie. "Don't get excited, I'm just joking," Grandma Connie hurriedly explained, after seeing her daughter's excessive reaction. Soon, the time came to 12 o'clock and the playfulness. Christmas Eve. It's time for friends to exchange gifts. Christmas gifts are not expensive, but thoughtful. Small gifts such as hats, scarves, gloves, etc. will bring warm feelings to people in the cold winter. Mike received the scarf knitted by Mary and the winter hat prepared by Grandma Connie. In addition, he also received a self-portrait drawn by Missy for him, a handmade storage box made by George, etc. He also prepared the same series of woolen gloves for Grandma Connie and the Cooper couple. He gave little George a sexy red scarf. As for little Sheldon and Missy, Mike gave them gifts that they selected themselves. This is the latest Barbie doll from the mall. Missy, who unwrapped the gift, kissed Mike on the cheek happily after seeing the Barbie doll as a reward. A perfect version at 1619 Book Bar. On the side, little Sheldon, who received the hardcover edition of A Brief History of Time, also showed a rare happy smile on his face. That night, even the relationship between Mary and George eased. The next day, Christmas. Because of the heavy snow last night, a thick layer of snow piled up on the ground outside. After a simple breakfast, George took the Cooper men and Mike to start cleaning the snow in front of the door in the morning. As for Grandma Connie and Mary, they stayed in the house and were preparing for the Christmas dinner. It was almost noon when Mike and others finished clearing the snow at the door and built a fat white snowman in the yard of Connie's grandmother's house. After George stuck the broom in his hand into the snowman, he wiped the sweat from his forehead, looked at his father expectantly, and said, "Dad, I want a suit." In order to be more sure of getting this gift, George had put in a lot of effort in the previous snow clearing activities. Suit. George looked at his eldest son, whose figure was gradually becoming taller, thought for a while, and said, "If you can change the snow tires for the family car by yourself, I will fulfill your wish." "Really?" George said excitedly, "I will go to change the snow tires for the family car in the afternoon." A suit is a man's armor, and George tried his best to look handsome. "Very good, I will give you a suit when you change the snow tires." George patted his eldest son on the shoulder and made a solemn promise. The growth of a man often happens inadvertently, perhaps at the moment when he wants a suit of his own. Then, George and his son got together again to discuss the specifics of the transaction. George taught his eldest son some tips on changing snow tires. Little George, on his part, explained to his father the color and style of the suit he wanted. It was noon, and when Missy came to the door and asked Mike and others to go home for dinner, George and his son had basically finished discussing the transaction. When everyone walked in, they saw that in addition to turkey and special roast beef, there were many other special foods on the table. "Let's raise our glasses and celebrate Christmas." When everyone sat down at the table, Grandma Connie greeted everyone warmly. "Cheers." Everyone raised their glasses to celebrate the arrival of Christmas. Chapter 200, Becoming Famous, continued. Christmas is one of the few days in a year when you can enjoy leisure time comfortably. You can share delicious food with your family, watch TV, listen to music, play games, etc. Of course, you can also go out to travel with your family. In the evening, in the living room of Connor's grandmother's house, when everyone was sitting in front of the TV, watching the Christmas variety show, Mike received a call from Regina. "What's the matter, Regina?" After answering the phone, Mike asked, "Mike, I have good news for you. This time, we are really going to be famous," Regina said excitedly on the other end of the phone. "Is the sales of Christmas singles rising again?" After feeling the girl's uncontrollable excitement, Mike smiled and guessed. As far as he knows, the song sung by the Devil Body Group has good sales locally, and some small shopping malls have already added that song to the playlist. The single has sold more than 5,000 copies, Regina said excitedly. In addition to the single selling well, there is even better news. Mike waited patiently for the next part. Regina didn't let anyone wait for long. She said all at once, "You know that my mother filmed a video for our show at the school Christmas party. Those videos were sent to the TV station. After watching them, they decided to invite us to participate in a Christmas Joy Day program. We will perform on TV. Christmas Joy Day is a variety show on a local TV station in Texas, which is like a 7-day Christmas joy show. Most of the guests invited to this show are famous local actors and singers in Texas. The nature of the show determines that it will be very popular in Texas. It can be imagined that being able to participate in such a high exposure show makes Quinn be very happy. After the girl shared the good news, Mike asked, "How much are they willing to pay us?" This is a very realistic question, and Mike doesn't have such an urgent need to become famous. What he cares most about is naturally whether it is worthwhile to go out and perform on Christmas. Money? Regina obviously didn't expect that Mike's angle of concern was so strange. Compared to the opportunity to become famous, is money still important? The girl was silent for a while and emphasized, "That's the Christmas Joy Day program." Obviously, the girl wanted to emphasize that being able to participate in this program is of great significance. That means the program team is not going to pay us. Mike analyzed calmly. In layman's terms, the program team wants to get something for free. This is not a matter of money. Regina said anxiously, "We have the opportunity to perform on the same stage with famous Texas stars. Isn't that enough? In fact, it is very rare for amateur stars to participate in this program. The Devil Body Group and Mike can have this opportunity, which is likely due to the relationship behind the scenes of AI Zoo. In order to fulfill her daughter's dream of becoming famous, she may have paid the program team. But Mike obviously couldn't accept being free. After hearing that there was no payment, he said with little interest, "Forget it, I won't join in the fun." Strictly speaking, in the song performance, Mike only played the role of musician last time. His position in the team performance is not indispensable. Get rid of it, just think of it as helping us. Without your team, the performance will not be so smooth. Regina heard that Mike was trying to shirk responsibility, and her tone was inevitably coquettish. Then, she continued, "I have told Katie and the others about this news, and they should call you later. Just think of it as accompanying us out for fun." Thinking that the girls would definitely attach great importance to this opportunity to participate in the show, Mike didn't want to spoil everyone's fun. So, he fell into a little entanglement. Should he spend Christmas at home with Grandma Connie and others, or go out with the girls of the Devil Body Group? By the way, Mike, the program team has specially allowed us to bring our families with us. Regina said, "It's also a rare opportunity to go to the scene to watch a star performance." "Okay, I'll ask Grandma Connie and the others for their opinions." The suggestion of bringing the family touched Mike. Putting himself in their shoes, just buy tickets for Grandma Connie and the others as your own reward. If you think about it this way, it doesn't seem to be a big loss. Wait for your good news. Seeing that Mike's attitude showed signs of loosening, Regina hung up the phone with satisfaction. On this side, Mike also told Grandma Connie and others who were watching TV that he could take his family to participate in Christmas Joy Day. "Is it the show I know?" Grandma Connie asked with a smile. The Christmas Joy Day program hosted by the TV station is very popular in Texas. Today, Grandma Connie and the Cooper family also watched this show. "Yes." Mike nodded. "A perfect version of the book in 1619. Great, that means we can see Alan Jackson's performance live." Grandma Connie said in surprise. Alan Jackson is a famous country musician. He has a small mustache and a handsome cowboy outfit. He is well known throughout the United States. "I can't guarantee that he will participate tomorrow." Mike saw Grandma Connie's excitement and smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. It's also a good experience to see other stars perform live." Grandma Connie, who likes excitement, is obviously very interested in going to the show. And judging from the situation, Grandma Connie just wanted to go to the scene to see the star. As for who this star is, she doesn't seem to care much. On the other hand, the Cooper family also showed great interest in going to the scene to watch the star performance. Looking at the expressions of George and his wife, they may have regarded this opportunity to watch the show live as a collective outing for the family on Christmas. After receiving unanimous support from everyone, Mike immediately called Regina back and set the itinerary. At Grandma Connie's house, George, who was sure that he could go to the scene to watch Christmas Joy Day tomorrow, immediately stood up and walked out. "Little George, what are you doing?" Mary, who discovered her eldest son's abnormality, asked. "You know, it's Christmas Eve, an important day for the family to reunite. I have to go back and try on the new suit I bought today." With that, George left Grandma Connor's house without looking back. This afternoon, George got a handsome black suit from his father through his hard work, changing snow tires. It seems that he wants to go home now, try on the suit, and prepare for tomorrow's activities. Obviously, he attaches great importance to the opportunity to watch the star performance tomorrow. He's right, I have to go home and find the new winter clothes I bought last year. After being reminded by his eldest son, George, the head of the family, couldn't sit still. Then, after exchanging glances with his wife, they left Grandma Connor's house together. It can be imagined that those who can go to watch the Christmas Joy Day show live are all well-known people, or the family of stars. Although the Cooper family is in a recession, George and his wife don't want to show shabby outside. People living in the world are more or less vain, which is also easy to understand. "I have to go back and dress up." Missy, who loves to join in the fun, greeted Mike and followed her parents' pace with her short legs. Suddenly, only little Sheldon, who still didn't know what was going on, was left at Grandma Connor's house. After looking around with a confused face, he also walked towards his own home in a sociable manner. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.